here already. So,
yes, madam, you can start now.
Okay. Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues from the media, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Center for Policy Dialogue, I would like to extend you a warm welcome to this virtual dialogue on Bangladesh-China Development Cooperation, Experience and Outlook, organized by the Center for Policy Dialogue. We are very happy to have the Honorable State Minister for Foreign Affairs, Mr. Mohammad Shahriar Alam MP. Thank you very much for joining today. And we also have two guests of honor. We have His Excellency Mr. Mahbubuzzaman, Bangladesh Ambassador to the People's Republic of China, Government of Bangladesh. And we have His Excellency Mr. Li Jiming, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to Bangladesh from People's Republic of China. And additionally, we have a very eminent set of panelists who have deep understanding on the subject. And today, today's session will be chaired by CPD's founding chair, Professor Rehman Sobhan. He will join in a while. Besides, I can see a number of distinguished participants in the audience. And I'm confident that we are going to have a very lively discussion during the next 2 hours or so. So before we hear from our panelists, I want to flag some issues on the theme of this dialogue, which will set the context of the discussions that we'll have. But since we want to hear from our eminent panel, I'm not going to make any PowerPoint presentations, and I'm going to be very brief. And at the outset, I would like to also focus on or draw your attention on the theme that our theme is Bangladesh-China Development Cooperation, and our specific focus in this session is going to be Chinese investment in Bangladesh. So Bangladesh and China currently maintain a strong bilateral partnership, which is strategically important for both the countries. And in recent years, both economic factors and proactive foreign policy have facilitated Sino-Bangladesh economic relations to grow manifold. And this economic relationship spans from aid to trade to investment to education and health and beyond. So just to give a few information, I know you all have these information. These are widely available. So what I'm going to present is nothing new, but just to recap. First, if you look at the Chinese aid to Bangladesh, it has, over the period, it has increased, and since independence of Bangladesh, a total of US $3.33 billion had been committed. This is between financial year 1972 and 2019. So, and then out of this 3.33 billion committed aid, 2.8 billion had been disbursed until 20th December 2019. And about 99% of this aid, both committed and disbursed, these have been project aid. So in terms of trade also, we have seen that over time, the trade relationship has also been strengthened. And in 2018, China was the largest trading partner of Bangladesh, with a share of about 19% of total trade that is being performed by Bangladesh. And this was almost double the amount of trade with India and more than the trade with USA and Germany combined. So of course, there is a huge trade gap in terms of export and import. The trade deficit is there, but both in terms of export and import, that's improving, and how we can reduce the trade deficit, that's one area where we need to work on. And we also know that under the Asia-Pacific Trade Agreement, after Earlier, 3,095 Bangladeshi products had duty-free, quota-free access to the Chinese market. Recently, this coverage of duty-free access has been extended to 8,256 products, which constitute 97% of the tariff lines. Now, in terms of other softer areas, social infrastructure also, for example, in education and healthcare, also the economic cooperation has been increasing. Over the years, we see the number of Bangladeshi students pursuing higher education in China has increased. The activity accelerated, particularly following the inception of the Belt and Road Initiative that that has been initiated by the Chinese President Xi Jinping. And also in terms of healthcare, in the recent past, particularly during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen that China has extended support to Bangladesh to fight against the pandemic by providing medical logistics, comprising surgical masks, medical protective gowns and masks, and testing materials, etc. Now, coming to the issue of investment, which is the main focus of this discussion, we have seen that China has become a top investor in Bangladesh. China had, in fact, replaced the United States as Bangladesh's top investor in 2018. And China held the position in 2019 as well, this top position, and the investment was $1.2 billion US, which is roughly 0.4% of Bangladesh's GDP in 2019. And we also know that China has been investing, making investment under a number of projects under the Belt and Road initiatives. And Chinese foreign investment that also reached a peak in 2019. So these are the things the reason for highlighting is that how over time this cooperation has been increasing between the two countries. And we have also seen that during the visit of the Chinese president to Bangladesh in 2016, in October 2016. So there was an understanding between the two countries to implement a number of government to government and business to business projects. And we have also seen that the promised investment was to the tune of 40 billion by China. And out of that, 24.45 billion was in bilateral assistance for infrastructure projects and 13.6 billion for joint ventures. In addition to that, another 20 billion was also committed in loan agreements. So we will hear we have His Excellency Chinese Ambassador to Bangladesh. We'll hear from him the status of those commitments, what exactly is happening. But we have seen also that in 2016, Bangladesh and China signed a number of projects that includes the Podda Bridge rail track, then the power plant in Paira, the digital connectivity and power grid network. So these are all there. And we also have seen that particularly the FDI has increased during financial year 2017 to 2019. So now the sectors where Chinese investments are coming most. Traditionally, Chinese investment have mostly targeted leather and leather products, textile and wearing, construction and trading in Bangladesh. And following the BRI commitments, inward investment received a significant boost, and particularly the power sector received a significant amount of investment, and it is at least 80% of the total Chinese FDI, both in 2018 and 19. And there are many projects which I'm not going to discuss or discuss at this point in time, in the interest of time, because we want to hear mostly from our panelists and distinguished guests. But another thing I also want to highlight that as part of Bangladesh government's initiative to establish special economic zones, Chinese economic and industrial zone is being developed in Chittagong, in Anwara Upazila of Chattogram district. And so that is another initiative to increase the investment and to attract Chinese investment. Also, we see Chinese investment in the financial sector. In 2018, we have seen that Alipay, which is a concern of Chinese e-commerce, and tech giant group of Alibaba, that had bought a stake in Bikash, and also Chinese investment in the Dhaka Stock Exchange, the Shanghai Stock Exchange and Shenzhen Stock Exchange. They had invested. And now, so there are many other initiatives and many areas for investment. So, but what I want to now highlight that these are only a few examples. There are many more, but as Bangladesh continues to strive for achieving high growth and sustain its economic growth, the need for more investment will be high. Bangladesh's infrastructure gap is expected to widen over the next 2 decades because it is growing, and there will be a need for much more investment. And it has been estimated that in 2040, Bangladesh will need an additional $10.5 billion for infrastructure financing. So, and also in the coming days, in the next 2-3 decades, Bangladesh is set to achieve a number of milestones. As we know that Bangladesh is set to graduate from the least developed country category by 2024, and also become an upper middle income country by 2031, an advanced country by 2041, so 2040. So these milestones will require, these are of course a matter of pride, but it also brings a lot of challenges. For example, when you graduate from LDC category, then we lose many international support measures which are given to Bangladesh as an LDC, including duty-free access of its products to the global market and concessional funds. Besides, we also know that the Western developed countries are also facing financial stress themselves. And in the context of COVID, this has been more striking. COVID-19 pandemic has added further challenge to the progress of the economy across the world. And in Bangladesh also, many achievements which have been made so far are going to be, are apprehended to be undone or lagging behind due to the negative impact of COVID. So as a result, the progress towards achieving many global goals, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals, and also many domestic goals, that will be very challenging. So therefore, not only Bangladesh will have to try to move forward, but also to protect many of the successes that which we have already achieved. So, and as the traditional developed countries themselves are facing economic stress, as I have mentioned, the importance of Western support is declining. And we see that new collaboration opportunities to address global problems have emerged due to the South-South cooperation. And we see that Chinese resources comprise an important component of the South-South cooperation. So in view of the changing global dynamics and in view of the ongoing pandemic, new opportunities for Sino-Bangladesh collaboration have emerged. And in order to take the advantage of that opportunities, Bangladesh will need to identify new areas for prospective investment. Apart from physical infrastructure, we also need infrastructure in the social areas. So before I end, maybe we can highlight a few areas where more investment is required. I will particularly highlight the investment need in the social sectors, for example, in case of education, because we have, in the literature, we find that China's education cooperation remains overwhelmingly bilateral, and it comes at recipients' request. So therefore, this is an opportunity Bangladesh will need to identify the priority areas in the education and leverage Chinese funding. Some of the areas could be cooperation in the form of building technical or sector-specific skills through vocational training facilities, education programs from Chinese institutions, and also with the growing demand for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, that is STEM graduates, particularly in the software industry, training and program can incorporate the emerging needs of the society, including areas such as artificial intelligence, big data, robotics, biomedical science, and other cutting-edge technologies. In the health sector also, I have already mentioned that during the COVID-19, we have seen that the health sector has to be improved significantly, and a lot of investment have to be done in health sector, and for pandemics like COVID and also any future diseases, China can extend its support in case of management and coordination, and also active surveillance, contact tracing, community mobilization, and infection prevention. The other area for investment is also investment in research and development, because many countries with limited income, they don't have adequate investment in research and development and innovation. So that's one area. We have seen the initiatives, the intellectual collaborations have started in a limited scale. We have seen that the Belt and Road Studies Network, this was introduced in the second Belt and Road Summit. So that's an opportunity to collaborate among the think tanks. So how also Bangladesh's research and development sectors, those organizations which are involved in this, can take opportunities and can identify areas for further investment. We'll have to work on that. So now I'll end by mentioning one or two issues, because those are also quite widely discussed issues, because when you talk about Chinese investment, people bring many examples across the world. People bring examples of Africa, people bring examples of Sri Lanka. So the issues of in this is one of the issue of compliance, because some observers feel that Chinese investment do not give adequate attention to the governance issues, for example, compliance with various international standards such as labor, environment, legal protection, procurement, good governance practices, etc. And the quality of investment, in fact, will depend how much these concerns are addressed by the government. In fact, both the government, how do they deal, both the donor country or the investor, and also the recipient countries, both countries need to work on that, and so that the transparency of this investment is required. The other issue, other challenge is that data availability, because data on various types of investments, what are the terms and conditions of those investments, how these are being monitored, etc. These have to be also transparent, and also the data will have to make available for public consumption. That will bring confidence among the people, and also the confidence to the respective governments. So I think with these comments, I'll now stop, and I'll start the proceedings of the session. And so we have a very distinguished, eminent panelist today. I will call upon them one by one. I think you all know them. Let me just first request Ambassador Humayun Kabir, who is the president of Bangladesh Enterprise Institute. Ambassador Humayun Kabir was ambassador. Has he joined? I don't. Has he joined?
Suman sir want to talk. Suman sir want to talk something.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay, our chairman, Professor Subhan, sir, he has joined. Yes, sir, would you like to say something at the beginning? Yes. Sir, please unmute yourself.
Ronak!
Yes.
Sir, it is functioning now, sir.
Sir, you can talk now, sir.
Can you hear me? Unmute
Yes,
me.
sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Yes, you can speak. Who is here at the moment already? Is the ambassador?
Sir, you can go ahead. Yes, we can hear you.
Is the ambassador and chief guest here? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Are the ambassador and chief guest here?
Yes, sir. They are here,
Yes, sir. Yes, all of them.
And also the main commentators.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I want to put some issues on the table before the commentators and then the main guests speak. Because I think you have, the executive director has presented before you a more specific perspective on investment cooperation between Bangladesh and China. But my view is that all of you will need to locate this discussion in a much wider vision of what is going on around us in the world and in the Asian region. And the reason why I say this is that for any of you who have actually read very carefully the speech and the writings of President Xi, which he presented at the second BRI summit, he presented not just a vision of some infrastructure investment opportunities, but really an agenda for a comprehensive global economic partnership, where he visualized a restructuring of China and the region's relations on a much wider range of trade, investment, technical cooperation, cultural cooperation. All these were part of a broader vision. And if that is the context in which we are relating to China, then Bangladesh also needs to widen its own vision in our relationship with China. So the issues, I think, which should come up during the course of the discussion are Bangladesh's own perspective on this. China has been thinking about a wider, comprehensive economic partnership and relations with South Asia for a very long time. In fact, when I was writing my book on the rediscovery of the Southern Silk Route, and I was in Kunming around 1998, 1999, I found at that time when I was visiting the departments of transport, railways, and highways, that they already had plans for constructing the Asian highway all the way from Kunming down to Myanmar, and had begun construction on a superhighway. And they were planning a railway connection between Kunming and Singapore, which is now already under implementation. They had a vision for the region and its relationship to the Bay of Bengal and to South Asia in particular. Now, this is what is known as long-term strategic thinking, and locating it in the wider context of the economic relationships that we wish to discover. Now, the few things which Bangladesh needs to keep in mind, and I bring this specifically to the notice of the state minister, but also hopefully to the commentators who may seek to elaborate on this, is that the world as it is going to evolve over the course of the next 25 years is going to be an Asian world. And particularly because of the reaction to the COVID crisis, in the way in which China, and not just China, but East and Southeast Asia have in fact rapidly brought this under control. This is going to, it was already the fastest growing region in the world, but it will in fact become a much faster growing region, and it will widen the gaps between Asia and other parts of the world. So that the huge, big opportunities, both for trade and investment, which are going to in fact be part of Bangladesh's strategic vision, will be around the Asian region. We will hope this will include South Asia, but it will also extend and be very importantly dependent on our relationships with China. Now, the advantage of the relationship with China is that China's great achievement over the course of the last 20 years has been it has constructed deep value chains with all its partner countries in Southeast and East Asia. And that therefore, as China has grown, so have all these countries grown. So for all these countries, China is the largest trading partner, not just in terms of imports coming in from China, but also exports. So that for most of the countries of East, and this includes South Korea, this includes Taiwan, this includes Australia, New Zealand, Vietnam, for all of them, their largest export markets are in fact in China. Now, this is a very sharp contrast to the circumstances which exist in South Asia, where China may have already become our largest trading partner in terms of imports, but we have very limited exports into China. So that the strategic issue for Bangladesh is to, in fact, visualize how we are going to develop the same value chains which were created between China and Southeast Asia, between China and South Asia, and more specifically for Bangladesh. And when we are therefore talking about investments, we shouldn't just talk about investments, because a lot of investment has come in, a certain amount of aids and loans have come in. But these have all come in a completely ad hoc manner, dealing with very specific domestic needs of Bangladesh. You have yourself mentioned our need for energy. But the most important way in which you want to visualize inflows of Chinese investment are how it is going to invest in value chains which will connect us to China and which will eventually make China into one of our major export markets. Because China is now already, in fact, emerging as the largest global market. And in the next 25 years, Asia, led by China, is going to, in fact, be contributing to 50% of global GDP growth. So that huge, huge opportunities are really there if we, in fact, think this through and we, in fact, design our investment strategies. So it isn't just enough for us to look at Bangladesh's investment needs in relation to Bangladesh. It is for us to look to Chinese investments coming in fact, target the investment opportunities which are going to open up. Now, the opening up of these investment opportunities are going to relate to the ongoing restructuring of the Chinese economy, which is very rapidly moving from a low-tech, labor-intensive economy around which its earlier GDP growth took place, to a high-tech, capital-intensive, more capital-intensive oriented economy. And therefore, it is going to be vacating a great deal of domestic market space and global market space in relation to these opportunities which are actually opening up. Now, these are all, in a way, abstract issues which very few people in Bangladesh, I would imagine, certainly not the policy-making area of Bangladesh, have really given much thought. So what I would certainly hope that the discussions will focus on is how we can then work out partnerships with China and China's institutions to look at this broader area of comprehensive economic partnership, which relates investments in infrastructure, investments in the industrial and service sector, which are to a considerable extent related then to growth opportunities, which will not only be specific to China, but will be also related to the growth which has in fact has emerged in East and Southeast Asia, and also in South Asia, because China's vision is not limited to Bangladesh. It is a global vision, and it is a pan-Asian vision, whatever may be its temporary problems with its large neighbor. After all, today, China is one of India's largest trading partners, whatever may be going on in the borders. So that they have notions of the nature of the type of investments which will need to be made in these countries in order to relate this to China's own needs. And we need to, in fact, address this. So the last point I wish to leave with you is that essentially what we should be thinking about, and I bring this to the special attention of the Chinese ambassador, is that we should identify institutions. I would certainly like to hope that CPD will play a very important role in this, to in fact partner with institutions. I have already been part of a global network of think tanks which met in parallel with the Global Summit, who were designed to come together to think of a comprehensive economic partnership at a global level. I would in fact like to invoke that challenge and to in fact get the ambassador to identify specific institutions in China which can collaborate with us to in fact actually look to the future, which will in fact give us a landscape of how China's own economy is restructuring, both in terms of its global landscape and its domestic needs. And we will in fact consider how Bangladesh can in fact actually access these opportunities as they emerge. And the terms and conditions on which we access this may depend on the very nature of the investment. It may well be that it will come in some considerable part as ODA, some of it may come in as soft loans, some of it may even come in as hard loans, some of it may even follow the idea which was developed by China in Gwadar and in Sri Lanka, where the idea of China, in fact, coming in and becoming a big infrastructure investor and then becoming an equity partner, and in fact, taking on the risk responsibilities for creating investment zones, which would in fact make effective utilization of the port and and would in fact generate export opportunities from there. These are all only possible if you are thinking these things strategically, so that you will then anticipate your investment needs in relation to China. You will structure the terms and conditions on which you bring in investment from China, depending on the particular nature and the market circumstances of the particular investment. And these will all be done in a joint, collectively thought out way, in which the think tanks will put a whole series of ideas, both of an informative and an policy operational nature, before their respective policy makers. These are the thoughts which I think all of you should keep in mind, rather than just limit yourself to the very much narrower discussion of investment between Bangladesh and China. Thank you. I hope this will be useful to you when you, in fact, go ahead with the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those words. I think the context of the session has been well laid out. Now we got a overview of what are the issues on the table to discuss today. Now, I would like to request, I think Ambassador Humayun Kabir is yet to join. Let me now invite Dr. A.K. Inamul Haq, who is a professor, Department of Economics, East West University, to make his remarks. I would like to request to keep your remarks within 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak on this. The Chinese Bangladesh issue, then I think I echo some of the comments made by the Professor Rahman Subhan, particularly that while we discuss the China-Bangladesh issue, there are certain topics that always flag out. But I think the long-term strategic issues are important. And my own feeling is that it's not that totally we are outside of it. It's that Bangladesh government has also thought about it. I'm pretty sure about it. But to start with, I think when we look into the pattern of investment China has done so far, except some joint venture, most of the investment are within the government sectors. In other words, in the infrastructure with the cooperation of the government. So I think strategically it is important that China expands it to other sectors. Professor Rahman Subhan mentioned something very important, that China is going to divest some of their investment from certain labor-intensive sectors to others, and Bangladesh would be a very good place for it. Just to give an example, the Uttara Economic Zone has already been one of these toy factories that have started. In other words, remember, China initially was the toy producer of the world. And a lot of time right now, as they're moving into high-tech industry, there are opportunities for Bangladesh to actually look into that, into investment sector, and use our zones to convert some of these market access they have with the global world into an investment and business partnership with China. And that is something that Bangladesh businesses should look into. So what I'm trying to push into our mind is that it's not just the government initiative, it's also private to private initiative that becomes important. And in dealing with the private and attracting private investment, I think the strategic goal should be a little bit wider than just between government to government cooperation. And when I say wider, I would echo some of the points, particularly the issue of people to people connectivity. So far, we have been doing business with China, and China has been one of the largest importing, Bangladesh has been the largest importing country from China. But if I go back, I give you an example for people to listen to, which is 2004, I was in Vietnam, and we were looking at the shrimp industry in Vietnam. And the first thing Vietnamese producers were telling me that I was discussing, where do you export? And they were saying most in 2004, Vietnam was looking at China as a bigger market. Our private businesses and investment and trade actually did not look into this. Still today, we are looking at the markets in the West. That is our largest export market. So I think that connectivity should be widened. And I think that is where strategic goal is important. What I mean by strategic goal is that connectivity between institutions with Bangladesh and Chinese, not just academic, but business institutions, giving them opportunity to know each other. As we have seen so far, Bangladeshi students are going to China. I would also encourage Chinese students come to Bangladesh, because that always bring and create opportunities for investment in future. So that seed of investment should be brought in through those corporations. Research is another area where both countries should cooperate. And you have mentioned, Dr. Fahmida has mentioned about the STEM, particularly in STEM education, the Chinese dominance is well worth it. We have to recognize this globally. If we look into the STEM education, the dominance of Chinese education is very strong, and that strength we should harbor, and we should bring those cooperation into reality. In terms of some of these issues, particularly with BRI, some of the criticisms and some of the issue flagged by Dr. Fahmida is important. She has mentioned one thing, which is about the governance issue of the Chinese investment, and I agree that these flagging are important. But at the same time, it's a flagging from both sides. Many of the, I still remember there was the Asian Development Bank country director in Bangladesh, And she was in a seminar mentioned that if we had to wait for corruption to get out of Bangladesh, then we cannot make any investment. So while we have to work on those issues, we have to think carefully that the investment has to be there. On the Sri Lankan issue, I mentioned this in a meeting in Guangdong 2 years ago, and that's a very important one. If you look into the investment issue, converting investment, converting debt into equity, these are strategies not really unknown. But I think the global connectivity is important. Bangladesh, I would say strategically, only 69 kilometers away from China and 0 kilometer away from India. So that strategic advantage of Bangladesh should be looked into both by Bangladesh and China. And because this is a country which has the two largest economy around us, we have to be careful on that because there are two largest economy around us and there are big partners. So in terms of investment opportunity, while China is looking into Bangladesh, it's not just infrastructure. Infrastructure may be important, but at the same time, business opportunities should be expanded. Just to before I conclude, let me give you one or two issues. Let me see. So in COVID, particularly when you look into the COVID, if you look into this, and I agree with Professor Ramansuban also, the Asian, this century is an Asian century. And we should recognize this from the heart, that this is an Asian century. Asian countries should understand this, and that should be the priority. There will be, and with the new Cold War between China and America, there will be diversion. There will be strategic game planning between countries. But we should understand that this is a century which has given back the opportunity that we had in the 17th century. 17th century was an Asian century. Now this is a new century, and 17th century we lost because of colonization. So we should be careful about it. This is another century, the new opportunity, but this opportunity, if we want to take advantage of this opportunity, we should look into the strategic partnership between Bangladesh and other countries, including China as a bigger trading and investment partner. So I would conclude by saying that, yes, there are flags that you have mentioned, that Dr. Fahmida has mentioned. At the same time, we should continue on those, look at the strategic game plan that is happening and say, look, we can play this. Bangladesh is not a small country. If you look carefully, the GDP of Bangladesh is as big as Malaysian GDP. So if you look into the economic size of Bangladesh, it is very big. And the potential of growth exists in Bangladesh. So given this, I would say we should look into these aspects and develop our partnership. I will stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Inamul Haq. Now, I think we have Ambassador Humayun Kabir, who has just joined. He is the president of Bangladesh Enterprise Institute, and he is from the government, a former government official, and also very deep understanding on the international relations issues. So my specific query from Ambassador Kabir would be that what strategic importance does Bangladesh hold in attracting investment from China, and also the economic relationship? Can it be improved without addressing the existing geopolitical issues? And the other issue also I would like you to focus on is that, do you see any tensions with regard to Bangladesh's stance in balancing China and India with regard to bilateral cooperation, because both are Bangladesh's big neighbors and Bangladesh has economic relationship and wants to continue economic relationship in the days to come. So these are specific issues posed to you, but you also like to reflect whatever you feel. Ambassador Humayun Kabir.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. And first of all, I should thank CPD for hosting such an important, I would say, a dialogue. And it's very timely. And I'm really grateful that you have included me as a discussion on this dialougge. With regard to the question that Dr. Fahmida you have mentioned, Bangladesh in its own merit demands an attractive investment destination. It's a, I would say, reasonably big market, growing economy. Is also getting connected to the regional, I would say, countries. Although I would say, in view of the new emerging economic groupings that are coming up, Bangladesh is still not very much connected to them. But I think as a country, Bangladesh is reasonably attractive, reasonably attractive country to invest. Now, with regard to the interest of China, I think China's interest we have seen on two tracks. One is the bilateral track, building economic relationship and taking advantage of the opportunities that are coming up. And here I would say that at the political level, at the economic level, Bangladesh and China has been benefiting from the economic cooperation that has been going on for decades now. But now that Bangladesh is growing, and Bangladesh is now also expanding its economic horizon beyond only its land, for example, the blue economy area, I think here China could become a potential investor. Now the question is, this is a bilateral track, but China also explored. I think Professor Mansoban is here. He has been working since long time back on developing the sub-regional or regional collaboration framework under Kunming Dialogue and subsequently BCIM. But that track now looks little, I would say, in a difficulty. So as of now, in my view, the Bangladesh-China economic or China relationship on the economic field essentially remains bilateral, and looks like that it might continue on bilateral track for quite some time. Now, the question that you have raised at the second part of your, initial remarks is that, is it trouble-free? I mean, is it like as it was before? Unfortunately, we are seeing that even with the bilateral track, we are seeing some I would say, intervention or interference, if I may put it, from other interested parties. I would just give an example with the Dhaka Stock Exchange. I mean, recently we have seen that. So we saw China-India competition on this issue. And even on the major infrastructure projects that are coming up, where Bangladesh and China are working bilaterally, those are being discussed now. We have not seen that before. For example, Sylhet Airport extension, Chinese interest in Tista basin management project. So these are the issues where I think now we are seeing the geopolitical content is getting mixed up. So what was purely a bilateral issue has now become linked up with the political issue or geopolitical issue. And I'm seeing more difficulty ahead as we move from the land to the maritime area. For example, the new area, new domain, or new economic opportunity that we are talking about will definitely come from the blue economy. Now, blue economy, once we go and start exploring that, I'm anticipating now a lot of difficulties for a number of reasons. For example, the ongoing tension between India and China, and they have now taken an almost mutually exclusive position vis-a-vis each other. And also they are trying to influence other countries in the region to take their side. Look at what's happening now with regard to Indo-US bilateral relationship. And then the kind of agreements they have signed that have not only regional but global implications. And then visit of Pompeo, the Secretary of State, to Sri Lanka and Maldives. And there also he raised the issue of Chinese interest or Chinese economic activities. Now, I would not be surprised if they have, or the Americans can talk about that. The same thing can happen with us. I mean, they might look at or scrutinize the Chinese projects in Bangladesh. And I can give you one example. Yesterday I was reading and I really got a bad feeling, because if this kind of situations develop further, then it will be really put a big challenge for us. Singaporean diplomat, the former permanent secretary, Mr. Bilahari, he has recently mentioned that Cambodia should be pushed out of ASEAN for being too close to China. And the point he is now making is that Cambodia has lost its independent decision-making process. And they are too close to China, and now ASEAN may consider pushing Cambodia out of ASEAN. I mean, this is something very serious issue being discussed. Cambodia has reacted in its own way, but the fact is that this issue is being discussed gives a foreshadow of how things could evolve. Yeah, I understand Cambodia has difficulty internally, and they are kind of a lot of scrutiny from the EU and so on and so forth. Now, if this is the trend that are developing in the future, and we are now sitting in the middle of India, China, ASEAN scenario, and here the Americans are also a big party. So that means that if we look at the future, a lot of challenges we can anticipate now, because our developmental needs will demand investment from outside. The West doesn't have the investment. I mean, the Americans are not interested in kind of capital investment that we are interested in, such as infrastructure and other stuff, even maybe also in the Bay of Bengal, for example, for blue economy. So who would be investing here? China is a potential investor. Now, these economic investment would now be clouded possibly by geopolitical consideration, and that is a potential difficulty that I can anticipate. Now the question is, can we overcome them? Well, perhaps, and here a very sophisticated, nuanced diplomacy we have to conduct. Now, anything else that Bangladesh can do? Well, my sense, I'm sharing my personal view, perhaps we can. Where we can? When I look at the Chinese economic kind of support to other countries, or Indian support to other countries, or Saudi Arabia support to other countries, we can see that each one of them follows their own standards. They don't have any kind of common template or any standard. And that is one of the points that the West, for example, the Americans, Europeans, are now raising, that they try to exploit the recipient countries and creates the possibility of them falling into debt trap. Now, how do we handle that situation? Perhaps we could encourage our partners, such as China, for example, to develop or to join or help a template which is acceptable globally, for example. OECD has a template on investment and other areas. So World Bank has a template. So China and India, both, we can suggest to them that if you develop a kind of acceptable template, which is globally acceptable or aligned with the global standard, then it could be helpful to us to sell the idea or to borrow from you. And at the same time, for you also, it would be better to sell your or extend your economic support without creating a kind of reaction that you are putting or pushing the countries into the debt trap. So perhaps it is time that we need support from China. China has the capacity to extend support, but now what would be the framework for that? And there perhaps countries like us, it is not only Bangladesh, we can work with some of the countries in the region, perhaps beyond the region, to help come out of the situation. And one of them, as I see, geopolitical tension will remain. But if we can create a situation where we can show that we are maintaining a standard or aligned with the global standard of investment, rates, repayment, and so on and so forth, that could perhaps clean the slate a little bit. And then people coming and raising the question could be perhaps
Ambassador
avoided.
Kabir. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador Kabir. I think you have raised a number of pertinent issues, particularly your suggestion on the development of an independent template which is aligned to the global standard. This is something very important, and I think the southern donors and southern investors have to now come forward to develop this, which is acceptable and which will be above the question of issues like debt trap and all these, so that the countries can take their decisions independently. And we can, how your suggestion also on the issue of debt trap, avoiding the debt trap issues, these are very important issues and which are being discussed for a long time. Now I think I will move to some of our Chinese colleagues. We have two distinguished panelists from China. First, I would like to request Professor Cheng Min. She is a professor at the Institute for Bangladesh Studies at Yunnan Academy of Social Sciences, Kunming, China. So Professor Cheng Min, I think you visited last time also to Bangladesh to attend one of our seminars, and she deals with South Asian issues. So Professor Cheng Min, thank you very much for joining, and you have 5 minutes. If you can make your comments, please, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much to CPD for holding such a virtual dialogue on the 45th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relations between China and Bangladesh. When the COVID-19 first broke out in China in January this year.
I'm meeting Yasi.
Yes, carry on. And if all of you can keep your microphone muted, then the speaker can speak uninterruptedly. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yes. When the COVID-19 first broke out in China in January this year, Bangladesh, which had no cases at that time, expressed deep concern over the outbreak and donated a large amount of epidemic prevention materials to China. I read an article by William Rahman, former Secretary of Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Bangladesh and Chairman of the Heritage Foundation of Bangladesh, who argues that Bangladesh should stand by the Chinese people. China will eventually overcome the virus, and the Western countries' overreaction to the coronavirus more dangerous than the virus itself. All this moved us very much. Thank you. China has basically restored normal social order. We also wish Bangladesh an earlier victory over the virus. Here, I would like to share with you my views on the following issues raised by Famida. First issue. What has been the trend of Chinese investment in Bangladesh? Which are the sectors that receive more investment from China? Is there any common pattern in terms of sectoral focus? I think Bangladesh has the following investment advantages. First, sustained economic growth. In 2018 to 2019 fiscal year, the real economic growth rate of Bangladesh reached 8.15%, and Bangladesh became one of the 40th growing regions in the world. In fiscal year 2019 to 2020, despite the impact of COVID-19, Bangladesh's economic growth rate reached 5.24%. Second, the domestic political situation is increasingly stable. Third, there are many preferential policies for foreign direct investment. Fourth, it has a large number of cheap labor and strong market base. And fifth, superior geographical location. In recent years, China's direct investment in Bangladesh has been growing rapidly. It grew from $5.31 million in 2006 to $544 million in 2018. The main areas of Chinese investment in Bangladesh are electricity, textiles, commerce and trade, and leathers. There is also great scope for cooperation in the information industry, joint efforts to reduce poverty and tackle climate change. And second is, some argue that Chinese investment through BRI will benefit only the Chinese economy, and the gains for the smaller countries will be negligible. What has been the experience so far? How can BRI be a win-win prosperization that reduces poverty and promote trade, investment, and economic well-being of all participating countries? I think for many developing countries, improving people's living standard is the most important thing. BRI means that it offers development opportunities to most countries. Let's look at two cases. The first case, the first highway in East Africa, through a partnership called One Belt, One Road. The highway was built in Ethiopia and is based entirely on Chinese technology and standards. In the second case, with the help of China, Belarus for the first time had its own car manufacturing industry. There are many more examples, and I won't go through them all. BRI follows the principle of wide consultation, joint contribution, shared benefits, which is driven by market mechanism fundamentally, and entrepreneurs make their own judgment based on costs and benefits. So it's a win-win situation. I believe that China's pragmatic actions bring more benefits to local people than the empty talk and accusation. I would also like to say a few words about the debt trap. China's laws are very different from other laws. Most of the laws of China are used for the construction of the real economy, and they actually create a lot of high quality assets, which have appreciated in value or will appreciate in value in the future. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Cheng Min, for your remarks. Now we have another speaker from China, Dr. Wang Shida, who is the Deputy Director at China Academy of Contemporary International Relations, Institute of South Asian Studies in Beijing, China. So Dr. Wang Shida, so please, yes, please make your remarks within 5 minutes.
Thanks, Chair. First, I would like to say that thanks a lot for CPT to arrange this kind of very important seminar and give me the opportunity to meet friends, old friends and new friends in Bangladesh. In fact, I met Mr. Soban Singh 3 or 4 years ago in Bangladesh in CPT, a long time, and also my old friends Ambassador Sabir from BEI. So, hello. I would like to use the opportunity to share my humble opinion on the bilateral cooperation between China and Bangladesh in the past 45 years, including development cooperation. First is political, because I think political, when we talk about cooperation, even economic or development cooperation, the political issue is always priority, because without the mutual trust, I think it is very difficult to let other areas cooperation go a very high level. So political, I think that I should say that this year marks the 45th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relationship between China and Bangladesh. And like President Xi Jinping pointed out, that since the establishment of our bilateral diplomatic relations 45 years ago, the two countries have always respected and treated each other as equals, and always strengthened the political mutual trust, deepened mutually beneficial cooperation, and brought tangible benefit to the peoples. And also, since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, China and Bangladesh have worked together and help each other to fight this kind of pandemic side by side, which also, I think, write a new chapter in our bilateral friendship. President Xi also attached great importance to the development of our bilateral relations, and is willing to work with President as well as Prime Minister Hasina to strengthen the strategic connection between the two countries and push our strategic cooperative partnership to a new height. While on the other hand, Prime Minister Hasina has visited China many times as Prime Minister as well as leader of the opposition party. She also attached great importance to the historical heritage of the China and the Bangladesh relationships. I should say that the close contact between the leaders of the two countries have contributed to the promotion of the two countries. The friendship between the people of the country plays a huge role. And also, Prime Minister Hasina emphasized that the Bangladesh developed the bilateral relationship with China on the basis of the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence, respect and support the development path chosen by each country based on their own national interest. I think that is very important because it is a political precondition. Second, I would like to say a few words about economic, that is the development cooperation. I think the economic and trade relationships between China and Bangladesh have developed very, very rapidly since the establishment of the diplomatic relations in 1975. The economic and trade of both countries are highly complementary. On the one hand, Bangladesh has good deep sea ports, while the rich natural gas resources and a population of 170 million, low labor cost, and a huge consumer market. On the other hand, China has its own advantages, which makes the economy of China and Bangladesh very complementary to each other. And also, Prime Minister Hasina stated that China is one of Bangladesh's most important partners in economic cooperation. China's cooperation in the fields of infrastructure, construction, trade, investment, energy and power, information and communication technology, telecommunication, as well as agriculture, all have a very positive impact on Bangladesh's social and economic progress. Third is security. I think China and Bangladesh have neither historical grievances nor the current geopolitical conflict of interest. In a word, I think there is not a historical problem of the current interest conflict between China and Bangladesh, which paves the way for the security cooperation between China and Bangladesh. I think both countries are very comfortable in developing security cooperations. Up till now, I think a huge amount of part of the main battle equipment of Bangladesh, including Army, Navy, and Air Forces, come from China, while the military personnel exchange are going very frequently. Last but not least, that is the BNR. In my humble opinion, the construction of the BNR initiative has become a new driving force for the China-Bangladesh cooperation. You see, in 2013, when Chinese president first put forward the BNR initiative, I think it warmly welcomed by the Bangladesh. For example, when meeting with President Xi in 2019, Prime Minister Hasina said that Bangladesh is looking forward to receiving support and cooperation from China while struggling to realize the Golden Bengal dream proposed by the founding father of the Bangladesh, such as enhance bilateral trade and investment, deepen cooperation in infrastructure construction, digital economy, climate change, counterterrorism, and security. Bangladesh will still and is willing to benefit from China's experience in governance as well as other experience, and actively participate in the joint construction of the BNR initiative. Just now, I think Ambassador Kabir mentioned the BCI project, and totally agree with you that up till now, I think BCI may feel a little problems, some issue, but I think the cooperations among China, Bangladesh, as well as other regional countries should continue. For example, maybe a sub-regional cooperation, including both China and Bangladesh. Last but not least, I would like to give a very simple response to one of the questions that Mr. Chairman just mentioned. That is, BNR's benefit who? I should say that at first, when we talk about the BNR, Chinese side always adhere to the principle of we consult together, we build together, and we enjoy together. I would like to take another project as an example. For example, the CPEC, which is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. You see that after 7 years of construction, I think up till now, the Pakistan already break out the neck bottles for their economic and social development. Because in 2013, Pakistan is in deadly need of the power as well as other infrastructure. But up till now, I think the power supply of Pakistan is no longer a problem. While in the meantime, the road, the railways, the port, as well as other special economic zones are all going step by step. So that I think that really lays a solid foundation for the future economic kickoff as well as industrialization of Pakistan. So that when we talk about this so-called debt trap as well as other issues, I think we should keep in mind. So who invest, who real invest, and how many investments that the country did. China do not like the so-called empty talks. China invest a lot of resources in regional countries, while I think some other countries just killed China. While that we should see that how much money, how much resources, how much techniques that such kind of countries invest in neighboring countries. Thanks a lot. I would like to conclude here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wang Shida. We have heard from two Chinese experts. Their views, particularly Dr. Wang Shida has mentioned about the complementarity of the two economies, and you have also brought out the issue of security cooperation. We'll hear more about the security aspects from one of our panelists, General Munir Zaman. But now I would like to request Mr. Mahbub ur Rahman, who is the Chief Executive Officer at the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation Limited, Bangladesh. And he is the private sector representative here today. And HSBC Bank has been involved in trade a lot, particularly ready-made garments trade. And my specific question to Mahbub would be that that after a number of MOUs signed by President Xi Jinping during his visit to Bangladesh, how much private investment has come so far, B2B, and what are the challenges with regard to private investment, and what strategic investments are being made under the BRI Belt and Road Initiative, and also the issue of market access, now that 97% of market access of Bangladesh's products would be given to the Chinese market. So how will the Bangladeshi exporters be benefited from that? Because since HSBC Bank is involved in exports significantly. So Mahbub, over to you. So thank you.
Thank you, Appa, and chief guests, excellencies, distinguished panelists, and all the attendees. Good afternoon. I'll just, for the interest of the time, I'll actually highlight the forward-looking perspective and also define the three major aspects that we observe in what is being taking place in Bangladesh. If I just categorize the three aspects of it, is domestic demand. Of course, domestic demand is growing, 170 million people, 50% below 25, GDP is growing, and also remittances also keep on increasing. The second part is the infrastructure developments. Of course, when you have 170 million people in 55,000 square mile, of course, the infrastructure has to happen on the physical infrastructure. But what we have also understood during this pandemic, that the service infrastructure is also something that people are now reflecting, which is, of course, healthcare, ICT, and of course, the education aspects of it. So that's the infrastructure. And the third aspects of Bangladesh would be supply chain reconfiguration. So keeping Honorable Chairman's advice of the macro and the strategic viewpoints, what I would start with is that on the domestic demand, of course, China has been the major trading partner and to the import side, and that is also contributing to the domestic demand as well as the industrial raw materials. Now, if I see the current developments of what's happening on the China side, being the export destination of Asia vis-a-vis the other countries, next month there is an expo happening in China, which is called China International Import Expo. That means that China is very willing to realize that what the other nation has to offer and the showcase for them to buy. So it is not about the China Expo, meaning China exporting out. It's rather what is China importing and how the countries as well as the farms, and to the chairman's point that how do we identify some of the sector players for the synergy and mutual interest. So from a made in China and made in Bangladesh to the made for China, that is the trend that has to capture. And to your point, that some of the tariff flexibility, whether it's bilateral, whether it's regional, and whether it's anything preferential trade agreement has to take place to seize the market. Because while the import and the point about the trade deficit is there, but for the right reasons, that export has to happen, and I think that has to be mutually beneficial. So that is one aspect of this. Okay, made in Bangladesh, made for China. Made in China concept was there, but today the concept of made for China has to come in. The other aspects about the infrastructure, the service infrastructure, I think we talked about the healthcare. I have personally visited one of the companies in Shenzhen. I have seen the medical equipments being manufactured on a world-class basis. So how do we really having an collaboration that not only the software side, but also the hardwares of the medical equipments at this moment, how can we actually foster that collaboration for them to help and for us to take advantage of that service infrastructure. On the ICT, we already know that Ant Financials and Alibaba has got a stake in Bikash, but I think that's probably as a reactive measures. But from an overall potential of Bangladesh in the ICT areas, I think WeChat and many other areas that we can take advantage of and take a very proactive approach to collaborate with China. Lastly, the supply chain reconfiguration. I think, of course, my previous point about having to foster the made for China, but I think the establishment of a supply chain is already there with Bangladesh, especially in the apparel sector. Now, from that perspective, what we see that at this moment, Bangladesh's man-made fiber is going to be the key challenge for the front-end operations of Bangladesh, that where the verticality of supply chain, particularly the backward linkage operation of the garments and textile, is going to be, I would say, a bit challenging from a man-made fiber because the fashion is getting different. And at this moment, our backward linkage operation is mostly cotton-based. So from a sector expertise, I think there is there is a very, very wider opportunity exists for us to really identify that how the capital investments are going to happen, say for like synthetics and the man-made fiber from China to Bangladesh, only to take advantage of the front end where we are actually making the garments for the world. And that can also happen other way around. You know, the where the international brands are growing, they're growing in Asia, they're growing in China. So it is not only for the Chinese brands, but also for the international brands operating in China. I think the trend has started. So my previous point about having to collaborate with supply chain, especially where the capital intensive projects are required to supply to this wider garments and textile industry, the raw materials that we don't have at this moment in Bangladesh, but they can come and then take and make an investment for a captive usage by the garments and textile industry, so that that becomes quite unique or win-win for this Bangladesh to take advantage of the growing requirements of the apparels, which are not necessarily cotton-based. Just to give you an example, that the man-made fiber export from Bangladesh out of the total export is 25%, while Vietnam makes almost 50% of the synthetic products to the outside of the of Vietnam. So that's probably one of the areas. Now, on the, and I'll just end within the next 2 minutes, that while we see the trade is going to be a little more balanced than what it is today, I see the opportunity to take advantage of, or at least to see strategic pointers to see the RMB as a trading currency. Because if we keep on importing from China, which is the fact at this moment, and if the trend of export to China starts to happen a bit more faster than what it is today, I see both the export and import can happen within RMB. We, as a bank, we have been voted lately the best RMB bank in Bangladesh. So from that experience, I can see that strategically from a policy making authorities, as well as from the ministries, I think this is one area that we can explore to have our trading currency a bit more diversified than what it is today. Yes, the three major areas: domestic demand, infrastructure, and supply chain reconfiguration. I think in both the three areas, all the three areas, our experience with China has already been there. The confidence is also already been there. We just need to narrow down a few areas where the identified private operators as well as the government operators can find an niche, and also can foster from an policy perspective to see the next 3 to 5 years that how it's going to operate for the collaboration as well as for the mutual benefit of the trade and investments both. Just to have your specific questions about the MOU that has been signed during President Xi's visit. What I would say is that out of all the projects, already 30 to 40% are actually in progress. So I will not quantify that one, but I think almost 30% from a value perspective is in progress. So I think I see that good traction is happening. And we HSBC also have a China desk where the two of our staff members are dedicated for having to cater to the China inbound in Bangladesh. From a service side, that the talent developments are also happening in collaboration with the Chinese counterpart. So I will stop there, and probably any questions during the open sessions would be happy to respond. So of course, the thematics of Made for China, our experience with working even with
points. So I'm sure during the open floor discussion, there will be comments. After one more speaker, we'll open the floor for discussion. So during which the audience can make any comments or pose any question to any of the panelists. So we have from this segment, we have more speakers, but from this segment, we have the last speaker. This is Major General A.N.M. Munir Zaman, NDC PSC, retired, President, Bangladesh Institute of Peace and Security Studies. He is an expert on security issues, on international relations, and of course, political issues and geopolitical issues. So I would like to request General Munir Zaman to highlight some of the issues which I had posed to Ambassador Humayun Kabir earlier. But in addition to that, I would also like to ask you to focus on the Sino-Bangladesh investment regime, which will be underpinned by the trends in the global political and economic relationship, particularly between China and the USA. So, and apart from the other issues which I have earlier posed to Ambassador Humayun Kabir. Over to you, General Munir Zaman.
Thank you, Dr. Fahmida. Let me start by thanking CPD for the very kind invitation to be on the panel, talking about some of the key issues today between China and Bangladesh on economic cooperation. I would like to start by saying that the economic cooperation between Bangladesh and China has a natural synergy, and we have historical background. If we just look back to the pre-colonial days, not too long ago, this part of South Asia and China together contributed to 54% of the global GDP, which was lost due to the years of history of colonial rule in this part of the world. And that is something that both our countries would like to reclaim again. China today is Bangladesh's largest trading partner with $18.7 billion USD, two-way trade, bilateral trade. It is also our strategic partner. We have excellent people-to-people relationship. China is also our biggest military hardware provider. So we have multiple channels of cooperation with China. Why should China be interested in Bangladesh compared to other nations in this part of the world? The reasons that I see is that Bangladesh provides an excellent convergence of Chinese geostrategic and geoeconomic interest in this part of the world. Bangladesh is also a key maritime nation sitting on the mouth of the Bay of Bengal, which becomes a very vital space for all sorts of maritime trade, particularly in the Indian Ocean region or IOR. We are also a key partner in the BCIM corridor. And as you would know, the BCIM corridor is also becoming a BRI corridor. Of the 6 BRI corridors, there are only 2 maritime corridors, and the BCIM corridor is one of those key maritime corridors. So therefore, Bangladesh also provides a critical maritime space and also a corridor to that space. So it is extremely attractive to Chinese investment for that reason. I would also like to say that we are also a country that provides deep sea port facilities, and we are in the process of constructing a deep sea port at Paira. And I'm happy to note that China is also taking part in the construction of that port. So therefore, on the overall connectivity, regional connectivity, both on land and on maritime space, China would find Bangladesh extremely attractive. I would also like to say that we have a country that is in close proximity to the Rakhine state of Myanmar, in which China has deep strategic, economic, and other interests. Therefore, Bangladesh, being a neighbor, has also a country that provides that kind of stability into that region. Therefore, the issue of the settlement of the Rohingya refugee crisis also becomes very important. Of course, our speakers have pointed out that we provide a large labor pool, but we also provide an alternative tariff path to Chinese industries who are increasingly coming under various tariff restrictions, particularly from the United States and Western markets. So therefore, a relocation of Chinese industries to Bangladesh is in the interest of Chinese industries as well as Bangladesh. But the other issues that I would like to flag very briefly is that the shadow of the current Sino-Indian relation is also overcasting on Bangladesh. We all know that the Chinese and the Indians are at a point of standoff in the Ladakh region, and that has a negative shadow on all relations within South Asia, particularly because India is also our very large neighbor and a neighbor that shares border on three sides. It has also deep connections to Bangladesh, both on economy and political spheres. Therefore, Sino-Indian tensions and potential conflict can have a very deep negative shadow on all sorts of economic cooperation within the region, including Bangladesh's economic cooperation with China. But a bigger question that comes to my mind now is the growing tension between the United States and China. And that is going to reshape much of the global landscape of strategic relationship. I see that there is a chance of a new Cold War 2.0. And if that comes about, then all countries, including countries like Bangladesh, which could be categorized as small states and middle power states, can have to re-navigate its pathways again as we shape our bilateral and multilateral relationship with countries, including our relationship with China, which we would like to maintain at all costs, because China is not only our friend, China is our strategic partner, both on strategic issues and economic issues. But the strategic competition that is starting between the United States and China may force Bangladesh to choose a side, and that is something we must avoid at all costs. We must maintain equidistance from both our friends, China, and other countries in the West. It is in our interest, it is in our national interest that we must maintain strategic autonomy at all costs. Maintenance of strategic autonomy is fundamental to maintain economic competitiveness and economic freedom. So therefore, we have to be extremely cautious in re-navigating the new complex world that we are entering. I would also like to say that with the potential decoupling of the US and the Chinese economies, which are the world's two largest economies, a lot of supply chain management issues have to be reconfigured. And in that reconfiguration, we must charter our ways so that we take the best advantage of this new world economy, which is in the process of decoupling. We are also seeing a new tech war starting between the United States and the West in one side and China on the other. So therefore, that is a space in which we have to tread very carefully again, because we would like to have new technology, 5G telephone technology and others. I see that there is a great move by the United States again to reinvigorate its strategy of Indo-Pacific strategy, or IPS. And we have seen the recent visits of very high-level US diplomats to the region, which has now become a principal destination for many of these political and diplomatic players in the world. So Bangladesh is a part of IPS in principle, but we are also a signatory to BRI. We should be very careful in maintaining our status in both, so that we take the best advantage of both these initiatives to our national interest, and don't become a part of any military agreements or soft military agreements, especially in the face of the recent military agreements that have been signed between the United States and India last week. We have to charter our course very carefully. In the last 1.5 minutes, I would like to also suggest that we must graduate beyond the traditional economic cooperation that we have with China, which is traditionally in the field of infrastructure development and some low-tech industries in Bangladesh investments. The areas that I would like to suggest We must find out cooperation with China to bring in more startup incubators, in which China is excellent today. China has excellent startup initiatives. That is a skill we need to acquire from them. We also need to talk to China in finding out how best it can lead in the green economic development that it is leading in its own country. Green economy is the future of the world economy. And that is where China can give us the skill, the investment, and the knowledge and know-how so that we can also become a major player in the future green economy. The world today is entering a possible post-COVID world with complete new paradigm shifts, not only in strategy, but also in its global economy. So therefore, we have to find out exactly how the new shape of the global economy and cooperation is going to look like. And we have to find our position there and reposition ourselves in that economy. I would like to suggest that China also develops not only regional cooperation in this part of the world, but also talks about sub-regional cooperation. I would like to suggest that China should provide Bangladesh its skill and know-how in tech economy, particularly in high-tech sector like 5G, AI, robotics, big data, etc. We were both present in the second BRI summit in Beijing last year. The chairman CPD and I were present in the excellent speeches that were given by world leaders. And a key takeaway from there was that we not only must develop economic corridors, but we must develop thought corridors. And as a think tanker, we were present in the think tank network of BRI, in which both CPD and my institutes are members. And that's an area where we should develop more skills and knowledge and know-how. I would also suggest that China should also do some homework in polishing up its investment image internationally, because a number of unproven profiles have been attached to its name, and it needs to clear up because that is essential to develop investment climate in other countries. I would suggest that China should also be a major player in Bangladesh in fintech, which is again the future of economy. And I'm happy to see that it has some limited investment in bKash and the stock exchange, but it should come in more major way as we try to develop our e-commerce capacity in Bangladesh. I would also suggest that China should become a major player in providing and developing our blue economic capacity, in which I am also cautioning that there will be major resistance for other international players because the IOR is becoming an area of contention and strategic competition. I would also like to say that there should be new digital corridors between China and Bangladesh. Again, something that President Xi mentioned during his speech to the second BRI summit. We need to have Chinese cooperation better in developing our negotiation skills, in which we still lack our capacity. So therefore, we cannot put the blame on any other country when we cannot negotiate better. An area where I would like to lay a lot of emphasis is that China has now today developed excellent capacity in smart agriculture. And that is an area where we can get their support. I have personally gone and seen their capacity in the field, and they have extremely high capacity in smart agriculture, something that we should bring for improving our agricultural production and capacity. We need to have also Chinese support in building smart cities in Bangladesh, because a very overpopulated country like Bangladesh cannot survive without developing smart cities, in which China has a lot of capacity. I'm happy to see that there has been some talk about water management and basin management and Tista water support, and those are the areas where we should cooperate more with China in finding out more avenues for water management and river basin management. Of course, software is a field where China has been cooperating with Bangladesh. We perhaps need to expand that, and a new area where I would suggest that we must now also find out ways where we can have joint collaboration on the entertainment industry between Bangladesh and China, which is a very, very rapidly expanding international field. So with those very brief statements, I would like to end here, and we can come back again during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General Munir. You have highlighted a number of issues, and your points regarding maintaining strategic autonomy for economic autonomy, and a number of suggestions where China can extend its support are very important. Indeed, all the speakers have highlighted a number of issues which are beneficial for both the countries if we want to strengthen the economic cooperation. I wouldn't summarize anything because we are running behind a lot, and also the rich discussion is beyond my capacity to bring all those points in a few minutes. So the Honorable Minister has to leave very soon, but I would like to now open the floor. I'll take to one or two comments, and then I'll go to the Honorable Minister. From the audience, I see a lot of people, lot of important participants are there, both from across I think Bangladesh and beyond, I can see. So if anyone wants to make a point, just within 1 minute, any comments or any questions if you have to the audience, you can do so right now. Yes. So, yes, Leslie Wong. Yes, I can see. Yes, please raise your hand, whoever wants to come. I'll also call some. Leslie, please come forward.
Yes, thank you, Famida. Thank you, everyone. And I'm very honored to be invited and as a guest to join this forum. It is very important for both countries. And actually, just a little bit background about myself. I was born in Shanghai, so I'm Chinese, and I'm married a Bangladesh person, Javed Rahman. So actually I consider myself, both countries are my home native countries. So I have a special attachment to Bangladesh. And this topic is extremely important for us personally and professionally. And a little bit background. So we actually met in New York, and we used to work in Wall Street. So I used to work for Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, other major investment firms. So for the past few years, I'm actually one of the active supporters and advocates for the Bangladesh and Chinese economic ties. So I explored that. Now, currently, we run something very important and I think very meaningful for all. So we have an online education platform based in Hong Kong. It's called mommydaddyme.com. So we are the actually one of now, we consider ourselves a fast growing online learning platform for K-12 in terms of giving the world-class material and resources for our children. We are a proud partner with South China Morning Post. Some of you may know, so they belong to Alibaba Group. They're Hong Kong and this region's largest newspaper. We actually have a joint platform to offer the world-class learning contents and services, including Scholastic. So Scholastic is the publisher for Harry Potter and the US largest 100-year-old history education publisher. So we're very proud to bring reading materials, coding resources, language, so including English and Chinese language training for our children. And I think this is, and in Bangladesh, we actually also have a Bangladesh company. So we're in the middle of further expanding to bring really whether the advanced learning technology. So we consider ourselves an edutech company. We also consider us a curator and a provider for world-class materials, bring from US, from China, and the classroom, live classroom standard. And it's something run very well to Bangladesh. We are in the middle of soon implementing some very large telecom institution partners. So hopefully you will see us more in Bangladesh. And our goal is to really bring down the border, make the education borderless, and particularly in the current pandemic situation, where we see the new norm of the learning, where our internet has enabled the scalable learning and enable the equitable access for the education possible. So we are the one now making our way, hopefully get your support. And I'm very glad to share my thoughts. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Leslie. This is another example of private, collaboration, private cooperation. So I will take another comment very quickly because I have to give the floor to the Honorable Minister because he has an appointment at 1 p.m. sharp. So if anyone can make it in 1 minute, please do so. Otherwise, we will give you
Dr.
floor after the Minister speaks.
Dr. Dave
Yes.
has
Dr.
raised.
Famida?
Yeah, I see a number of, yes, I have seen Dr. Devprio Bhattacharya has raised his hands and Mustafiz Bhai also, but yes, please decide between the two. So who will come first?
No, let Devprio speak.
No. Mustafiz goes ahead. He's a bigger Chinese expert than I am.
No. Please, Devprio, please.
Oh, thank you. No, my general point is what do we take for ourselves, for Bangladesh from this discussion? What is the policy message, what we take forward in order to improve investment and also to seek market and develop infrastructure and improve human resources? So I see at this moment when we are preparing our new industrial policy, which is possibly underway, what type of new strategic approach we can build in over there from the perspectives of promoting the relationship, realizing the potential relationship with China. I see there are 4 approaches over here. One is, of course, the special approach. The government has given economic zone to the special economic zone to the Chinese investors. So that is a special approach. We have just heard about the product approach, which is that you produce things only for Chinese market. That's another approach. The third one is, of course, the market linkages approach, that we take away all the problems which are affecting our market promotion or investment promotion, like trade finance or customs and tariffs issues. And the last but not least is the value-added approach, or the value in the value chain approach, which is possibly the RMG, that we bring in inputs and we produce goods, and we will have to seek more regional value chains in these cases. So amongst these approaches, the special product or the market or the value chain, Bangladesh will have to decide to prioritize where exactly it wants to put its 2 penny worth of effort at this moment. I would think that we have done the special approach. Product approach is a good one, but value chain approach is also equally good. That will bring us to my last point, a sub point on that. When we discuss Bangladesh-China relationship, it does not means only limited. It is not only limited to Chinese and the Bangladesh market. We should jointly export third-party market. We should export third country investment, third country trade. And that is the value chain approach. And concretely, I propose Myanmar is a prospect. Joint investment in Myanmar may have good impact on our current problems, which we are having our neighbors with those, the unwanted refugees, which we are at this moment harbored by Bangladesh. So I see a huge critical strategic importance on the choice of the approach we want to pick in this trade and industrial policy in the coming days vis-a-vis China. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I would like to, we'll continue the discussion, but I'd like to give the floor to our chief guest, Mr. MD Shahriar Alam MP, Honorable State Minister for Foreign Affairs, Government of Bangladesh, because he has a very important meeting and he has to go. Honorable Minister, over to you. Thank you very much for waiting patiently and listening to the audience and to the speakers so far.
Thank you. Thank you for accommodating my request, Dr. Famida, distinguished participants, Excellencies, Assalamu alaikum, and a very good afternoon by now. I join you to thank CPD for inviting me to take part in this virtual dialogue focusing on Bangladesh-China development cooperation. And I take this opportunity to extend my warmest greetings to the peoples of both the countries, Bangladesh and China, to a friendly country on the occasion of the 45th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between us. Past few years have witnessed a significant boost, I'm sure you'll all agree, in our cooperation, the foundation of which was laid by none other than father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who visited China twice in 50s. Our relations were placed on a significantly higher plane following Honorable Prime Minister's, our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's visit to China in 2014, a return visit by President Xi Jinping in 2016, and another visit by Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in 2019. And I feel privileged to be present during all these visits. And there were visits scheduled to mark the Mujib Borsho, but unfortunately, due to COVID pandemic, we had to postpone that. But I'm sure there will be more high-level visits that will take place in near future. Being the second largest economy of the world, we know that China is a significant player at the world stage. China is now the prime driving force of global economic growth. Today, Chinese presence, her presence is felt in every corner of the globe, and countries seems to be vying to attract investment from China. Bangladesh, like many other countries of the world, has joined the Belt and Road Initiative, and also the China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, in order to be benefited from the injection of huge funds in infrastructural development and improvement of connectivity. As China has assured that these initiatives have no other objective than enhancing economic cooperation, even some developed countries from the West have joined them as well. Over the years, China has become an important development partner of Bangladesh. Trade and investment cooperation from the core of our cooperation form the core of our ever-increasing engagement, and we can't deny that. Bilateral trade between Bangladesh and China recorded rapid expansion in the last decade. Obviously, it's hugely tilted towards China. So, 10 billion. It has crossed $10 billion mark quite a few years ago, and our exports is only reaching about $1 billion. So a lot of work to be done, and we welcome the recent initiative and declaration made by the Chinese authorities, making a lot of our exportable duty-free into China. And we are working closely with Chinese authority to improve this situation. And as I mentioned about the recent initiatives, now we need to make a better use of those facilities and align our manufacturing, i.e. private sector, to cater the need of Chinese importers, which various speakers have talked about product and services. And talking about the strategy, in fact, we are not here to reinvent the wheel. Through these discussions, we can kind of fine-tune our ideas and policies. But Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina laid down a very clear policy as far as China is concerned way back at least 10 years ago, if not during her first tenure in 1996-2001. And the relationship as it stands today is one of those strategic partnership that we actually officially declared in 2016 when President Xi Jinping paid his visit to Dhaka. We want to enhance further the Chinese investment in our country with buyback facilities, which can contribute to further reduction of this trade gap. It is a matter of deep satisfaction that the volume of Chinese investment in Bangladesh is on rise. Both government and private companies of China have shown keen interest to increase their investment in Bangladesh. This undoubtedly is a reflection of the cordial relation between the two countries. While China wants to gainfully invest her excess foreign currency reserve and shift some of our labor-intensive industries to other developing countries, Bangladesh welcomes FDI with open arms to spur industrialization of our country, and there obviously is a convergence of economic interest of the two countries. We talked about it. The government allocated almost 800 acres of land in Anwara, Chittagong district, for the establishment of an exclusive Chinese industrial economic zone. Once open, the economic zone is expected to attract a considerable amount of Chinese investment. But while we wait this Andhra project to be ready, obviously the Chinese investors are not waiting. There are multiple investments projects that came up into operation in last couple of years, since 2014 in particular. Chinese entrepreneurs are eager to take advantage of the competitive labor force and want to shift some of their labor-intensive manufacturing units to Bangladesh. Some of you also highlighted that, and may I just humbly remind you that it's actually not, it's only recently, when I say recently, it's not yesterday, but for last couple of years, Chinese manufacturers are going abroad to manufacture the products that they have specialized in. They went to Cambodia, they went to Vietnam, and I think, for a longer term, third destination is being Bangladesh. And meanwhile, Bangladesh has built its own infrastructure. And at the opening remark, I listened to Dr. Fahmida said that our infrastructure gap is likely to widen. I disagree with that comment, because that was probably true 10 years ago, but our infrastructure gap is narrowing. We are already producing surplus electricity. We have excess bandwidth. Our port facility 4 or 5 years from today will be world-class. Chittagong port, age-old Chittagong, is operating efficiently. I wouldn't say that, in compared to the recent ports that's being set up in this region, but better performance is a lot better. Paira is in operation, and also Mongla. And meanwhile, we will have Matarbari deep sea port. All the roads that we are building today are 4-lane. Every corner of Bangladesh will have a double gauge, mixed gauge, double track railway system. Padma Bridge will be open for public use in a year or two, let's say. We have started or about to start construction. Honorable Prime Minister is scheduled to lay the foundation of the railway bridge over Jamuna alongside the Bangabandhu Bridge on 29th November. All the airports, we have increased capacity of our airports, our airlines. So I don't think that our infrastructure gap will be widening. If anything, it will narrow down even further. Anyways, coming back to our today's discussion, Bangladesh is in the midst of implementation of various mega projects. I just highlighted a few. In view of the country's location, many of you talked about strategic location, brought geopolitical issues in the discussion. Our location between South and Southeast Asia, the infrastructure facilities in Bangladesh is expected to play an instrumental role in regional and inter-regional connectivity. And as I said, all these policy decisions were made long ago. And all the projects that I mentioned is not only going to benefit Bangladesh, but going to benefit the entire region. One of the speakers said that the physical distance between Bangladesh and China is only about 69 kilometers. And we'll be hoping for a day when we'll be able to connect China in other transport modes other than air connectivity. And Ambassador is aware that we have formally approached China to help us to extend the railway and road link from Teknaf through the state of Rakhine into Myanmar, so that we could connect China and the other ASEAN countries in Southeast Asia. In view of resource constraints, we have to rely on friends like China for support of our massive development work. The Chinese government has been providing funding support for different infrastructure and development projects in Bangladesh. And even though this is not the case, I don't think it's the case for any such country, actually, that this so-called debt trap is often being used by certain quarter. But may I just remind you that China is relatively newcomer in the global capital market. I'm reading out from a text that I have prepared. Debt extended by it are not high in percentage term, globally speaking. According to a survey, China only accounts for 2% of the $6 trillion external debt owed by African countries, with the main creditors being World Bank, IMF, Paris Club members. ADB data has shown that Asia Pacific region needs an annual investment of $1.7 trillion for infrastructure development. That amount of money cannot be provided by any single country alone, and China is obviously no exception. On the question of Bangladesh debt repayment, Bangladesh's track record has been good. We have never defaulted on our loans. Our debt repayment capacity and credit worthiness is good. Our debt GDP ratio is within the safe limit. Our credit worthiness is positive, and the institutional credit rating, according to Moody's, is also good. And as much as we are aware of our strength, we are also aware of our limitations. So, I don't think that that theory at all applies for Bangladesh. And so to speak, I don't think it applies for, as I just pointed out the numbers, you can go and do your own research in case of Africa. Coming back to today's discussion again, distinguished audience and friends. During the visit of Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh to China in 2014, the ceiling of annual project grant for Bangladesh was raised substantially to support more capacity building activities and help socio-economic development projects in Bangladesh. Already a number of projects have been implemented in Bangladesh with Chinese funding, while many others are under implementation or in the pipeline. I don't want to go into the detail of those. I'm sure that all of you joined here today have all the list, including it started off probably the bridge over the Buriganga, and we are already into the 8th or 9th friendship, Bangladesh-China friendship bridges. But there are so many numerous projects to mention. Chinese companies are also, that's kind of government infrastructure, but Chinese companies are also involved in implementation of number of public as well as private projects in Bangladesh in diverse sectors such as power generation, coal mining, offshore oil and gas exploration, telecommunication, port and railway sector development, irrigation, and water resource development. Chinese state-owned companies have been appointed to implement the two major components of the Bangladesh government's financed Podda Bridge project, the river training work and the construction of core structure of the bridge. Cooperation in diverse areas. A lot of you talked about diversity going forward. And, as I said, we have laid down our policy loud and clear. And cooperation in diverse areas of agriculture sector has brought our two countries even closer. Bangladesh and China have been collaborating in hybrid rice cultivation technology, agricultural machinery technology, exchange of germplasm resources of crops, farm products processing, and technical personnel training as well. China has been providing scholarship of higher studies, training and research program of a significant number of high-level officials and experts from Bangladesh every year going to China. Shah Jalal Fertilizer Factory has been established with Chinese assistance. Technical collaboration is another important plank of our relations with China. Bangladesh and China have been cooperating in a wide range of areas, including industries, agriculture, water resources development, flood management, earthquake warning, science and technology, space research and application, flood forecasting and sharing of hydrological data of common river, and natural disaster preparedness. Bangladeshi scientists from different fields have been receiving training in China for the last few years as well. China's interest in Bangladesh stems from a number of factors. I think our Chinese friends actually mentioned that. The huge economic potential of Bangladesh, high GDP growth rate, her strategic location, an enormous market with a bargaining middle class. In the past few years, among the developing countries, the Bangladesh economy has performed extraordinarily well and manifested its resilience in the face of global financial downturn and the COVID crisis. Honorable Chair, Dr. Raymond Suman went on to mention that potential lies ahead are even brighter and bigger and wider because it is no doubt this is the Asian century, and we have surpassed West Asia has surpassed the other continents in terms of GDP growth in last decade or so, and post-COVID forecast suggests that that gap will be even greater and better growth for Asia as a whole. As China has been working to implement her vision of transforming the country into a developed and prosperous one, Bangladesh has also been making efforts to achieve developed country status by 2041. Closer economic collaboration between our two countries will facilitate reaching these visions, the common goals, and I'm confident that the mutually beneficial cooperation between Bangladesh and China in various areas will be further deepened in the coming years, which will help bring prosperity for our people. I thank you for your kind attention. Jai Bangla, Jai Bangla.
Thank you very much, Honorable State Minister for Foreign Affairs. That was really a brief landscape of the economic cooperation between Bangladesh and China. You have highlighted many areas where the relationship exists, and you also expressed the commitment of the current government in maintaining and strengthening the relationship between the two countries. So we are very encouraged, and I'm sure our Chinese colleagues are also very happy and look forward to strengthening the relationship. Now I go back to the open floor discussion. I want to take some comments and questions from the audience, because I have mentioned that a large number of participants are there. I'm sure they will have a lot of comments to make and observations to make. So please, earlier, Mustafiz Bhai, you raised your hand. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Please make your intervention.
Yeah. Thank you, Excellencies, Honorable Minister. Thank you for those comments, and it was a very rewarding experience. I would like to take a point which Dr. Deoprio mentioned with regard to the value chain. If we look into the Chinese policies, we see that there is a marked shift from export orientation to more emphasis on domestic demand stimulation. So I think that China imports currently $2,200 billion of various imports, and I think the challenge for Bangladesh is to attract Chinese investment to Bangladesh, targeting the Chinese market, taking advantage of the duty-free, quota-free market access that China has provided. I think that's where we should put our emphasis. And from that perspective, since Bangladesh is graduating in 2024, can we think about requesting China in our negotiations to extend the duty-free beyond 2024? In fact, when Samoa graduated in 2014, China has extended the duty-free, quota-free market access that it gives to the LDCs beyond 2014. So I think that this is one concrete suggestion that I would like to put. Honorable the Excellency Ambassadors, Bangladesh Ambassador to China and Chinese Ambassador to Bangladesh is here. So my concrete proposal on the table will be that we also have that type of extension beyond 2024 as part of South-South cooperation and Bangladesh-China negotiation. If that be the case, then obviously the investments that we are trying to attract from China to Bangladesh, I think there will be an added incentive for those investments targeting the Chinese market. So that will be one proposal that I would like to put on the table. Thank you, Dr. Farminder.
Thank you, Professor Mustafizur Rahman. Yes, I'll come back to the panelist later on. I can see Ambassador Humayun could be raising hand, but I'll come back to the panelist once again. So any other comments? I saw Mr. Kamran. Yes, Mr. Mohsin Khan, I can see. Yes, please make your intervention. Yes, in 1 minute, please do so.
Yes, this is Ambassador Mohsin Ali Khan. I would like to request the honorable, respected Chinese ambassador for consideration that whether China can consider for all but arms market access to Bangladesh. When I was ambassador in Canada in 2001, the Canadian, they have given us all but arms facilities market access. And secondly, whether the China can provide us vocational training to our labor force so that they can be utilized for various vocational training and skills for working in Bangladesh as well as abroad. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your intervention. Any other comments from the audience? Yes.
Femida, can I come in?
Yes, Professor Amina Mohsin, Professor, International Relations Department, Dhaka University. Please make your comment.
Thank you very much, Femida. I just have, two queries. One, in fact, these are to the panelists. I would like to know from Ambassador Humayun Kabir as well as General Muniruzzaman that how do they see Bangladesh placing itself in terms of vaccine diplomacy vis-a-vis China, India, and the US, given the COVID situation? That is just one question. And the other is, to General, again to General Muniruzzaman, he was talking about smart agriculture. And recently, Mustafiz Bhai, you would recall that we were in a discussion on employment opportunities. So, I was just wondering that given the impact of the COVID situation, I mean, agriculture had been a mainstay. I mean, because given Bangladesh's population, General Muniruzzaman, do you think that smart agriculture because there has been so much emphasis on technology in this discussion, how do you think that we can use our population? I mean, is it going to have a negative impact or not? That is the second question. If I have time, I'll come back to the security scenario later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other queries and comments? If not, then I would go back to my panelists. Okay, Mr. Siddiqui. Okay, please make your comments.
Okay, whenever we discuss about the Chinese cooperation, some people raise the issue of debt trap. And today morning, I just listened to Professor Rahman Subhan. He has given a very interesting opinion that the debt converted to equity can enhance the business. So can I request the Honorable Ambassador of China to clarify this point? Why the issue of debt trap is so widely discussed issue related to the debt or investment of China? Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll go back to the panelists, but before that, any other, I can see other Chinese colleagues also who have joined from China. So if you want to make any comment, short comment, intervention. Okay, let me go back to the panelists. I'll give 1 minute to each of them. I'll just reverse the order now. I'll start with General Muniruzzaman. There are specific questions posed to you. So please respond.
Thank you. Half a minute, and I will just respond to the two questions which were directed to me. First is about the vaccine. Vaccine will be fundamental to our getting back to normal. So the term that I would like to use is again autonomy. So we must maintain vaccine autonomy. We have been offered vaccine support or access by Sinotech from China. We've also been offered the same sort of support facilities from India. There is also offer from the Oxford vaccine in the UK, and we must be open to all three so that wherever we get the first vaccine, we must be able to access them. At the same time, we must be able to access them at an affordable cost that we can afford with our money or with the financial support that we receive from the vaccine producing country or other friendly countries. So in terms of vaccines, we must remain completely open so that we are able to access the vaccines whenever they're available in the market. On the second question, in the smart agriculture, the employability doesn't go down. What it offers is that better understanding through technology. For example, in case of irrigation needs, it can access the soil conditions much better so that the exact amount of the water support that is needed at a particular season is given. Or for example, for pesticide, it can observe the nature of pesticides that is needed. So it comes with offer for all sorts of technological innovations and technological support that improves the productivity. It does not hamper the employability in the agricultural sector. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Mahbubur Rahman, yes.
Look, anything particular, but I would go back to my 3 points actually. One, of course, the infrastructure is ongoing. I think there is wider scope to do that one. The second part, of course, the value chain. And I think there is a huge potential for Bangladesh apparel industry to have a win-win propositions with the Chinese counterpart.
Can you be a bit louder? I think your voice is fading.
Is that okay now?
Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay, sorry about this. I think the 3 points that I mentioned, the domestic demand of Bangladesh growing, infrastructure requirements, and the thirdly is about the supply chain reconfiguration. Within that, infrastructure is an ongoing engagements with China, and that's, I think, now will take a little bit of different turn, like from power generation to transmission and distribution. If it comes to the power, then of course the port and other stuff is going on. The 2 points that I made, actually, one regarding the supply chain reconfiguration. I think our main export of the apparel, while we are in the front end and cutting and making, can have more synergy of having to have some investments on a targeted basis, especially for us to get enabled in terms of offering product diversification to the market, as well as to shorten the lead time and to have a more synergy with Chinese market vis-a-vis world market. And that trade, because BRI is not only the infrastructure, BRI is also about the flow and the trade, both together. So from the trade perspective, I think it is important for us to look into the possibilities about using the RMB, because that also will put us into a diverse currency baskets, especially when the export will rise. And I think that's the direction of the travel than what it is today. Then that will make the natural hedge for all the parties, because if import and export happens in the same currency, albeit at this moment there is a huge gap, but I think with the regional cooperation, this currency will come into the play, and where the bank like us can really make some good contribution in the value. I think that's the two major area I would say. The service infrastructure, especially other than the physical infrastructure, the service infrastructure I think has been touched upon by quite a few honorable panelists, because one is about education and skill sets enhancement. I think that is one area that we require to upskill our people. Second part would be the healthcare and ICT. The healthcare, of course, we have understood how China has handled the pandemic vis-a-vis the more and more innovations are coming up from China about more healthcare and of course the hardware being the equipments of the healthcare. And within that space, I also see that ICT, especially we have experienced the pandemic situations to gear up what has been the trend. I think fast tracking is happening through the ICT enablement, especially when we see Bikash and Alibaba's investments in Bangladesh. I think that can be much more widened to have a tech-enabled growth journey in the years to come.
Thank you. So our Chinese participants, Professor Cheng Min or Dr. Wang Shida. So would you like to make any comments at this point in time? If not, then I'll just move quickly to Dr. Inamul Haq if you want to make any last minute comment in 30 seconds.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think I will make 3 points. One, on the vaccine issue, I think vaccine issue, the point that should be noted, I think we will not probably go back to the normal as before. So we have to learn how to live with it. And that's something that we have to consider instead of waiting for vaccine, getting 7 billion people into the vaccination. And if it's not a permanent vaccination, if it has to be done every 6 months or every year, it's a useless exercise for me. So I think that part has to be understood carefully. Second is the issue of smart agriculture. I think there is a lot to learn. Vertical agriculture is happening in China quite strongly compared to many other countries. So we can develop that as a cooperation strategy. And I think that is important for Bangladesh because it's a land-scarce economy and we are losing about 80,000 hectares of land per year. So that is the third one is important, which I believe is more of a strategic goal, which is look at build Bangladesh. Bangladesh has a strategic location. These Bangladesh ports with investment through many, including Chinese, as a Rotterdam of Europe. Like think about South Asia being the largest population concentration, lot of imported products, and we need something, a Rotterdam of Europe. And if we say Rotterdam of Europe, we are still dependent on Singapore, and Singapore is the feeding port for us. I think we need to shift it towards somewhere. The Hambantota is a good example, but we need to relocate the Hambantota and link it with Bangladeshi port because Bangladesh is connected to the northeast and other regions, Nepal and Bhutan. So if you look in the economic, the corridor, we have a significant advantage of this. And so I think we need not only the port infrastructure, but also other infrastructure related to the facilitated, themes of the Rotterdam or the free port. And that is something South Asia should consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so last in this segment, before we go to our guests of honor, Ambassador Humayun Kabir, you have your 30 seconds. Please unmute yourself. Ambassador Kabir, yes.
Yes, 3 quick comments. On vaccine, I think I fully agree with what has already been told by General Munir Zaman and Dr. Inamul Haq. On other issues, Dr. Debopriya has mentioned a little bit, but I think since Chinese ambassador is here, in view of the recent developments, a few months, what is happening in the region, larger region, I think China, we appreciate China has been trying to help us with regard to the resolution of the Rohingya problem in terms of return of the Rohingya refugees to Myanmar. I think it has a strategic value also. China should think about it. Recently, China has been trying to revive the trilateral dialogue. I think if they become a little more active, the benefit that we could get is now China has CMAC with Myanmar. Bangladesh, we talk about BCIM, we could talk about BCM. That's a possibility from a strategic point of view that will give 2 benefits to Bangladesh. One is connecting to ASEAN and then through ASEAN connecting to China. It's a larger landscape that we can get. This is number 1 we have to think seriously. Second one is Bangladesh is still, we are not connected to an active major economic grouping. BIMSTEC is there, going nowhere. Now, my sense is that RCEP, although going through a little bit of hiccup, will come back soon. And with if there is a change in the US political structure, I mean, TPP could also come back. That means these 2 infrastructure, economic infrastructure would be coming into play possibly soon. If we can have a connection to ASEAN, then we can get access to, in a way, to the larger market. For example, comprising the RCEP. And we must actively look at where the mouth is. So we should think about actively from a strategic point of view and from the future of Saudi, from Bangladesh in terms of our economic growth horizons, for example. So with these words, I'd like once again like to thank the CPD for inviting me and hosting this wonderful dialogue, and also thank Chairman Professor Raman.
Thank you.
Subhan,
Yes. Thank you very much, Ambassador Main Kubir, and thank you to all the panelists and all those who have just participated in the open floor discussion. Now I would turn to the remarks to be made by our guests of honor. First, I would like to invite His Excellency Mr. Mahbub-uz-Zaman, Bangladesh Ambassador to the People's Republic of China, Government of Bangladesh. I know you have been waiting patiently. You joined very early before everyone joined. So thank you very much for your patience, and we are really grateful that you could make it. Over to you.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Am I being audible? Is it? Yeah.
Yes, yes, you are
okay.
Very much.
Okay. Respected Chairman, Professor Raman Subhan, I thank you for setting the tone of the virtual dialogue, and of course, and I will also take the cue from Mr. Mahbubur Rahman, the HSBC CEO, who emphasized on the 3 points: the investment side, the consumption, import, exports, and also the domestic demand. I recollect that last year, before I moved to Beijing as a Bangladesh envoy, CPD had organized an international conference in Dhaka that would have been on BRI, positioning Bangladesh within comparative perspectives. So again, as I think it as a linkage, we are meeting at a virtual dialogue titled Bangladesh-China Development Cooperation, and the objective is to discuss the outlook for future bilateral relationship through investment and trade. And I would like to start off with the premise that the outlook or prospect is indeed bright, and but however, the fact remains that through conscious and rational choices and decisions, we can influence the outlook and, of course, predict a possible, outcome. And those who have been assembled here, the academics, the researchers, stakeholders, civil society, have a role to play as they can provide perspectives on contemporary issues. So this is my starting point. At the meeting on the BRI, I emphasized that that essence of governance is would be choice, and diplomacy offers us choices. So these choices must be negotiated with other sovereign actors that are not subject to a particular state's customs. And we had heard other speakers who had said that we had to look at the competence, strength, advantages of the country concerned with whom we would have economic partnerships, and whether it would be in our advantage. We have seen that Professor Raman Subhan has also said that China has emerged as the world's largest economy in purchasing power parity terms, with India in the 3rd place. And between 1990 and 27, Chinese share of global GDP grew from 1.6% to 15.2%. And presently, China accounts for 21% of global sovereign wealth capital and holds around 19% of US Treasury bills. So, and people are saying, analysts, that within a decade, China will surpass others and be the strongest economy. So, at this critical juncture of 45 years of establishment of our bilateral ties, it would be pertinent to reflect on our economic relations and recollect how this has impacted us in our process of economic development. And we have a long-standing economic relation, and especially if we see from the investment side, public and the private investment, there is a huge amount of public investment from the Chinese side. And you all know that the three fast-track, mega projects under Chinese assistance are the Padma multi-purpose beach project, Padma Bridge rail link project, and the Kornufuli, tunnel projects. You know that during the visit of Chinese, Premier Xi Jinping in 2016, a memorandum of understanding of investment and industrial productivity cooperation was signed, and this agreement contained 27 projects, which amounted to around $23 billion. It's a huge sum. And it is also very significant in the sense that this was the first presence of the Chinese premier after a period of almost 25 to 30 years during the our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's time. And if we see the progress of these fast-tracked mega projects, we see that they are making a considerable amount of progress. Until now, 26% of the work has been completed for this Padma Bridge rail project, and under the tunnel River Kornufuli, it has also made remarkable progress. Almost 58% has been completed. And we have also the project related to installation of single point mooring with double pipeline. It has made 41%. It's quite visible, this public sector projects. And on the other side, we see that the Chinese government also provides us with grants. And under the Chinese grants, we have constructed 8 Bangladesh-China friendship bridges, which is very important for our infrastructure, development. And you have also seen that we have gone to the Bangabandhu International Convention Center, which was built through Chinese, assistance. Now coming to the very important part, which Fahmida already said, that about the investment, scenario. China has become the top investor in Bangladesh. Last year, I also, attended a meeting organized by PwC, and I saw a huge amount of interest for Chinese companies to invest in Bangladesh. Likewise, during my stay in Beijing, during all this period, I have been making frequent tours, and the situation in China has, of course, improved considerably. They have been able to contain this epidemic, and I'm making extensive tours. One was telling about the Shanghai International Conference for Imports. Last year, our advisor, Mr. Salman Rahman, and I myself attended this meeting in Shanghai, and it was a huge success. We saw a spontaneous reaction from the potential Chinese investors, business persons, and they said that we had historical ties, and Bangladesh is so close to us. Why can't we have more trade, more interaction with Bangladesh? And fact and statistics wise, Bangladesh has the investment inflow of Chinese investment to Bangladesh has increased significantly. It was over 700 million US dollars last year, and before in 2018 it was 5 or 6 million. So there's a significant jump. And in the export processing zone and in the BEZA and BEBZA, I personally have made some dent or mark by bringing along some Chinese investment. One is the Fortune 500 Chinese company, Yabang Group, which are going to invest in a industrial, petrochemical, project. Likewise, in the trade sector, China is our largest, trade partner, and we have more than 16 billion US dollar trade each year, and we import more than 25 to 30% of our imports from China. And China is the largest, single largest sourcing country for RMG and textile industry, raw materials, machineries, and chemicals. My personal experience is that price-wise, competition-wise, quality-wise, the businessman and the traders in Bangladesh have a distinct preference, for those goods, produced by the Chinese entrepreneurs and industries. And we are planning to open 3 weekly flights by Bangladesh, Biman, considering the huge demand of the traffic. Cargo is already there. Southern China is already operating, and also Eastern China from Kunming. But we have seen a huge demand for trade and investment opportunities from the Bangladesh side, and we have seen that most importantly, this awarding of this 97% of the Bangladeshi products originating from Bangladesh, this duty-free, access to Chinese market is a big boost and a boon, for us. And I am confident that this will give a very much advantage over other countries for Bangladesh. And we have calculated that this full duty-free treatment to Bangladesh would extend to, on a HS 8-digit basis, to almost over 8,000 products out of the 8,285 tariff lines. So you see that people have in Bangladesh, some are apprehensive that how will this help us, and are this of our product interest? I can vouch for that. That of course, this most of the product that will come duty-free under this access will be of export interest for Bangladesh, and Bangladesh would enjoy a preferential margin of around, I think, 10 to 15% for their products, and comprehensive coverage to 97% of Bangladesh products may incentivize and induce
the invention of cryptocurrencies brought us alternatives to the traditional financial system.
And set up their factories.
Hex is the next step in that evolution.
Designed to many of them are already investing in the export processing zone, and we know that our honorable state minister has said that in Chittagong, Anwara, they have for the Chinese investors, potential and actual investors, we have set up industrial zone, and we have seen quite a considerable amount of interest. So in the context of time, for giving opportunity to others also, I have decided to shorten my speech a little bit. But let me say that why Bangladesh needs Chinese investment and also greater trade expansion, because already we have seen that we have a vision to implement the following goals and objectives under the Vision 2021 and 2041, Delta Plan 2100. And of course, there is this global commitment to achieve sustainable development goals by the year 2030. 2030 SDG goals is very important, and I have personally visited many cities in China. They are very much conscious about environmental standards. I've seen plants and processing industries which are focusing on making composite materials, building and construction materials out of waste products, and they are focusing more on energy efficiency. So it's quite an amazing experience for me. So I'm hopeful that with the SDG goals of clean and sustainable cities, smart cities, Chinese assistance would be very much helpful for us. And of course, as our honorable state minister has said, that the needs for infrastructure development is huge and fast. We cannot rely on one particular country. So the joint country initiatives and financing are already being done by the government, and we have this mode of financing under consortium, multi-country and institutions. These are ongoing process. So we have to explore all models and options and find a judicious mix without being overtly dependent on any single source. So we should look into the subject matter of the economy or the economics. There is no one size fits solution. as some neoclassical economists would lead us to believe. So the analysis should be based on practice and experiences rather than on theory itself. So lastly, but not the least, in the ultimate analysis, these allegations of so-called debt trap, it's not true. It's hyped up thing. It is for the individual countries to take their needs, priorities, interests, and objectives into account while seeking loans and developmental assistance. But of course, strict monitoring is also important for ensuring quality, maintenance of standards, and the timely completion of projects. So in the BRI circle, it is a noticeable thing that China has become more responsive to the concerns of the recipient countries. And they have said that the recipient countries will be consulted more and their concerns will be taken into account. And of course, Bangladesh has always been steadfast in the protection of their national objectives, interests, and priorities. And we have, of course, never defaulted on our loans. Our track record is very high, very good. So at the conclusion, I would say that, all our partners are welcome to be associated in our quest for self-reliance and achieving the goals of Vision 2041 to be a developed country. And father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, always had dreamed of a self-reliant and prosperous Sonar Bangla and advocated a policy of friendship towards all and malice towards all. I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, Mr. Mahbubuzzaman, Bangladesh Ambassador to the People's Republic of China. Now, I would like to request our another guest of honor, His Excellency Mr. Li Jiming, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to Bangladesh, People's Republic of China. So, Excellency, thank you very much for patiently waiting. You have been waiting about 3 hours almost now. So we are also eagerly waiting to listen from you. So over to you, Excellency. Kindly unmute yourself, the microphone. Yes, if you can unmute yourself, we can't hear you.
Okay,
yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
All right, thank you very much, Hamida, and thank you, Professor Sopham, for inviting me to this very, very important seminar. The reason I said it is very important is that I think this seminar is held in a very important moment. You see, probably you have been noticed that China is holding the 5th plenary session of the CPC Central Committee. And the purpose of this meeting is to draw up the 14th five-year plan for China, and also the plan for the next 15 years, not only the 5 years. It is very important to China. It matters to China, and it also, I'm sure, matters to the world. And also, this is a very important moment that we all know that the US is busy in its general election. So I think this week is very, very important to the world. So we picked up this very important moment and also picked up a
I think the internet, yes.
In the infrastructure and so on. And also, the Chinese investment to Bangladesh is very important to China because Chinese companies sees Bangladesh market is one of the most important market for investment. And probably our friend might not being told that the biggest ever Chinese concessional loan for the project over globally is in Bangladesh, the Padma Rail Link project, which is 3.1 billion US dollars, largest globally issued from a Chinese side ever. So this is a very important market for China. And for my personally, I've been observed that they are very interesting and also encouraging development in the Chinese investment in Bangladesh. At least there are 4 of them. Number one is that Chinese investment in Bangladesh is switching from small projects to bigger projects. We're talking about $1 million US dollars or so. Number two, it is switching from light industries like garment industries to heavy industries and infrastructures as well. My hometown is in Kunming, and the Kunming steel mill is seriously preparing to invest a steel mill in Bangladesh, and they have been working on it for more than 3 years. And probably Ambassador Dama, my friend, knows about this project. They've been working for it for more than 3 years now, and it's now already passed the procedures, approvals from the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of even the Ministry of Law, because they have some switch of the identities and so on. And now it's in the Economic Committee of the Cabinet of the Honorable Prime Minister's office. So I hope this can be finalized soon. This is number two, from light to heavy. And also, we can see Chinese investment is switching from low value added ones to high value added ones. We have mobile phone production invested in Bangladesh, and they are already preparing to be producing mobile phones in Bangladesh now. Not everybody knows about that. And also in telecommunications and other high value added industries in Bangladesh. And the fourth, it is switching from direct investment into direct plus indirect investment, which means financing in this market. So all those gives us very, very encouraging signals that it is moving in a very, very healthy direction. And our friend might already noticed that Chinese government recently announced that China will impose a new development pattern, which means a dual circulation development pattern. Domestic circulation plus international circulation. And some people interpret this dual circulation as a closed door circulation, closed door policy of China, which is patently wrong. Chinese government encourages its businesses to go global, even border to the border markets, but mainly to investment in neighboring countries, especially countries in the Belt and Road Initiative. And of course, Chinese companies also encountered some difficulties in Bangladesh. Mainly, it's lack of infrastructure, and sometimes the bureaucracy is there, and red tapes and efficiency of the government agencies, and so on. Also, as one of our participants once mentioned, that the lack of working skills of those laborers, local laborers, they need some further vocational skills training, and so on. Those are the problems that we're facing. But the development momentum is very, very encouraging. And I'm very, very confident to say that we will witness some more optimistic development in terms of Chinese investment in Bangladesh. But in order to achieve that, probably we need to accomplish several things. Here I have some specific suggestions. Number one is that we should join our hands to increase the political mutual trust between our two countries. Our previous panelist correctly mentioned some high-level exchanges between China and Bangladesh, especially the recent exchange visit of our national leaders. President Xi visited Bangladesh in 2016, and Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina visited China in 2019. Both visits created a lot of consensuses between the two governments and stabilized and strengthened the political mutual trust between our two countries. But we need to do more. Yeah, we need to keep this momentum. And the embassy will do our due job and diligently to promote in this regard. And the second is that we need to let the Belt and Road initiative become a popular initiative in Bangladesh. We need to have people understand this initiative deepen and more deep, and probably more people accept it, because we still can hear a lot of noises, especially noises from the West and some other countries about that trap or whatever. So we need to make this initiative be understood by more Bangladesh people and in deeper way. And the third is we need to improve the Bangladesh investment environment further and increase and upgrade the working skill of Bangladesh workers. And the embassy will be must help to be of some help, because every year we offer a scholarship, more than 1,000 scholarship for vocational trainees to be trained in China for say 1 year or so, even longer. And recently we're considering to set up some more systematic relationship between vocational training institutions in China and in Bangladesh. And the trainees might be trained, say, 2 years in Bangladesh and at least 1 year in China. By these ways that we can improve this in this regard. And fourth, I think we need to increase the promotion of Bangladesh as an investment market to Chinese business circles. I think we have done very little because I think we need to join hands to make activities, promotion activities in China, both online, in online way, or sometimes probably also we can consider offline ways to make Bangladesh more popular in China. And the fifth, I think we have to consider at least to sign 2 MOUs between the 2 governments. Number 1 is what just I think one of our guests, Mr. Mahbub ur Rahman, the president from HSBC, mentioned several times Chinese currency cooperation with Bangladesh. We need some monetary cooperation between the 2 countries, between the 2 governments. Actually, I recently wrote a letter to the Honorable Governor of the Bank of Bangladesh and suggested that probably Bangladesh can also consider, as many other countries, to sign a currency swap agreement with China. And I offered that probably China can loan at least $5 billion worth of RMB to the Bank of Bangladesh as foreign reserve to diversify the foreign reserve structure of the bank, of the Central Bank of Bangladesh. And since the Chinese currency is widely accepted as the trade settlement currency between China and many Southeast Asian countries, why not Bangladesh? And number 2 MOU I'm proposing is a G2G PPP MOU between the 2 governments. In fact, right before I entered this meeting room, I was on the phone calling the CEO of PPP authorities, and the CEO, who is a lady, she agreed to put this and work together with the embassy and to push forward to realize the signing of a PPP agreement between the 2 governments. And after that, it will facilitate much more Chinese investment into the Bangladesh market. That is for sure. So I have some suggestions like these, and I'm open to comments from our Bangladesh friends, especially from our Honorable Chairman, Professor Sobham. You, at the beginning, right at the beginning of this seminar, you correctly guided us that we should consider Chinese investment in a broader way, in a broader vision rather than a narrow vision, because there are so much things that we should think of. It is not merely an economic issue. It might mean much more than that, Chinese investment. And Professor Sobman, I am hoping to meet with you. Actually, upon my arrival to Dhaka, I tried to call on you, but unfortunately you were out of town at that time. I was told by your staff members. And after that, we were all in the pandemic. So I missed the opportunity, but I still looking forward to meeting you in person and to in search for your guidance and for your advices and how to improve our relationship between the two countries and between the two people.
I think, yes. I think ambassador's internet is unstable at this point.
Hear me?
Yes, now we can, yeah, we can hear you now, but we can't see you. So.
Oh, sorry. Because the internet connections sometimes
yes, it's unstable.
Sorry about that. So at least you have already heard what I'm talking. Okay.
Thank you very much for your elaborate discussion on the collaboration with Bangladesh and cooperation with Bangladesh, Chinese support and also Chinese investment in various areas. So I think at this point in time, I would like to request our chairman, Professor Emasovan, to make his concluding remarks. We are 3 hours into this discussion. I think this is one of the longest discussions we have. It only shows that how important the issue is and how much interest people of Bangladesh have on this. So over to you, sir. Sorry, you'll have to unmute. So you'll have to unmute yourself. Okay, now
okay. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. I've already had my say, but I will respond to a few remarks. To begin with, I would again like to express my appreciation for CPD, who has continued to keep up the dialogue with our Chinese partners on addressing the future of China-Bangladesh relations. We've had a very constructive discussion, and I'm particularly grateful to the two ambassadors for being with us today. I'm sorry that, in fact, I did not have the opportunity to meet with Ambassador from China just after he came in. And then we have now been separated by COVID. We are looking forward to China initiatives in producing vaccines to, in fact, help Bangladesh to come out of COVID. And we would see that as a very positive contribution to our relationships, which will enable us to then once again have face-to-face meetings. The ambassador ended the discussion on a very positive note in the sense that he made quite concrete sets of suggestions. I was very impressed with his idea of making a concessional loan to the Bangladesh Bank of $5 billion, which would in fact actually go in and constitute a part of our reserves and would help us to diversify our reserve base and make more active use of the renminbi. In fact, actually, this is a perfectly sensible idea, since China is our biggest source of imports. So to, in fact, have greater opportunities to make settlements on the basis of the Chinese currency is a very constructive suggestion, and I hope the Bangladesh Bank governor and the finance minister have been listening into this, or will be given the opportunity to, in fact, actually respond to the suggestion of the ambassador. I will just make 2 rounds of remarks and try to, in fact, do this in terms of very positive sets of suggestions. First is, of course, to deal with the issue of a more focused investment strategy for Bangladesh. We have had many such discussions and many generalized discussions on investment opportunities. But at the end of the day, a lot of this still remains in the realm of generality. Now, out of the 97% of goods entering into in the Chinese import basket, which have given us duty-free access, our ambassador Mehboob has identified that there are 8,000 such products which have access to the Chinese market on a duty-free basis. Now, what I would request my colleagues at CPD and indeed other think tanks is that next time we sit down to have a discussion on investment, I would like some very concrete, well-researched presentations to be made on at least 10 major items of export potential drawn from the list of 8,000 products, which can in fact access Chinese markets on a sufficient scale. And if we can in fact follow this up with consultations through the courtesy of the ambassador with Chinese think tanks, to then also identify Chinese companies which could in fact be bought in and given positions in our investment zone over here to in fact actually then make major investments in these 10 clearly identified products. At the moment, all initiatives for product identification are left to the individual investors, and certainly Bangladesh investors have not been particularly enterprising, either in responding to the duty-free access to the Indian market or to avail of the 8,000 product opportunities in China. And so I think they need to be pushed at the elbow and taken forward. And I would then hope that our colleague from Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank can in fact actually then play some facilitating role in that process in identifying specific products. Obviously, we need to do similar exercises. CPD has mentioned this many times in our discussion, and again, part of the failure is our own, to in fact identify similar project opportunities for accessing the Indian market. In relation to this, again, very concretely, we should look for very concrete identifications of specific projects which are at risk of losing their market space in the US and European market because of the emerging protectionist policies targeted to China, which in fact are taking place over there. Again, Chinese entrepreneurs have made some identifications. Bangladesh MCCI is always talking about it, but no one has really come up with concrete identification of some of the key areas where in fact China's market space is going to be limited over there, and they themselves recognize this and are looking for investment openings where they can in fact maintain links with the Chinese market, with the US and other markets, which may be directly cut off to them. Thirdly, out of this, again, as Devapriyo has also mentioned, there is a question of identifying also the value chain access. Again, we have failed conspicuously in identifying value chain linkages with India, where we had opportunities. And here again, we have failed. Obviously, both foreign investors as well as Chinese investors will be interested to know what are at least some concrete sets of opportunities for Bangladesh to plug into particular value chains. China is in reverse plugging into Bangladesh value chains and are in fact a very important and key part of Bangladesh's export sector, particularly the RMG, where Chinese suppliers of intermediate products are in fact linked to the Bangladesh value chain. So here I'm making these as very concrete suggestions. I don't want people to just go on nodding their heads. And I will in fact periodically take my colleagues, certainly at CPD, to task to see what specific action they are taking over here. And where I will concretely request the Chinese ambassador is that this sort of exercise would be best done in partnership with some Chinese research institutions who can in fact actually give us access to Chinese data and identification of the ways in which the Chinese export markets and their industrial strategies are being restructured so that we can work on this exercise together. So if we take the initiative in developing concrete proposals, we hope you will then be able to take the advantage and connect us with partners so that we will be able to, in the next 6 months, come up with a very concrete set of ideas which we can share with the two governments and with a big gathering of businessmen from both sides, that here are specific areas in which you can come and make your investment. The last point I wish to make is, of course, a somewhat more academic point, which is related to the conversations going on about the debt trap. Now, I myself have thought that the Chinese initiative, both with the Kota port in Sri Lanka and with Gwadar in Pakistan, were actually very sensible ideas. That you have converted a major debt liability for these two countries into an investment opportunity, and you have brought in Chinese expertise and make them stakeholders in seeing that these ports are operated efficiently. What we should certainly be doing is to look at a number of our projects where China is involved through loan financing, and to see which of these projects would immediately lend themselves to converting parts of the loan into equity. And even if we may not bring in Chinese investors to directly manage the project, certainly we would bring them in as partners so that they would become stakeholders in seeing that markets are created in China and elsewhere for this project to in fact become a profitable venture for their investments. So here again, there are a whole list of projects I've seen with varying degrees of loan, not all of which would certainly lend themselves to equity investments, but it is worth, again, a constructive exercise which we should perhaps carry out in collaboration with the Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce to in fact see how which of these projects could be in fact converted into an equity investment. For my concrete suggestion would certainly be that perhaps the Karnafuli fertilizer project, which in fact is a commercially marketable product, may well be a very sensible area in which part of the loan could be in fact converted into equity over there. These again are suggestions. Now on the broader issue of debt traps, people tend to have very short memories. In my recent professional life, not going back very far, I have lived through a number of debt trap episodes which were not related to China. People may remember that in the 1980s, a huge debt trap was created for Latin America through commercial lending by Western banks. Professional life, billions, if not going back very far, I have pushed on to live through a number of debt trap episodes, and they were then not trapped for over a decade in debt traps, which took them many years to exit, and some have never fully exited it. We may then again come further up and remember the debt traps of the 90s, in which some Southeast Asian countries, including Korea, in fact entered into large commercial short-term debts, which were again pushed on them by Western banks who were ready to take advantage of opportunities over there. And this was a direct and instrumental factor in the Asian economic crisis of the 90s, which was in fact originating in debt traps created by Western banks. And the final one I would draw to your attention would be the debt traps which were created in the latest period, which contributed to a global economic recession, where in fact, again, all sorts of peculiar financial instruments were fashioned by Western banks and pushed on countries. The final one I would draw to your attention, ready to accept, would be and the most extreme example of that was the Greek debt trap, which in fact accumulated to over $100 billion, and which forced Greeks into a 10-year recession from which it is still not extracted, because in order to, in fact, actually service the debts, the European debtors compelled Greeks to go in for an extreme form of economic austerity, which imposed great hardships on the Greek population. So when people come and talk about debt traps, we should kindly develop some sense of historical perspective, because in order to in see actually what service relative challenges were posed by past debts, particularly those originating from commercial banks in the West, and how far any particular country has in fact been reduced to such terrible conditions of having to impose economic austerity on themselves in order to repay the sort of loans which have been forthcoming from China. In fact, where two serious debt problems have emerged, China stepped forward on its own initiative to resolve it by converting the debt into equity. And this remains a very interesting possibility, not just for these two countries, but for many of the other African countries where China is in fact actually involved. And I'm sure that there would be quite a number of African countries in sub-Saharan Africa who would greatly appreciate the possibilities of converting some of their debt into equity. So with these words, I would again like to thank all the participants, particularly our special guests and the main commentators, and of course CPD, and hope that this discussion can continue, but next time with much more concrete propositions on the table than we have managed to present today. And I would ask my executive director to take very serious cognizance of this suggestion, and I would personally hold her accountable if in fact we have not made progress in this in the course of the next 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think the responsibility will also fall on many who work on this area, and particularly, of course, you have assigned the responsibility on my shoulder. So we'll be working towards this, and this is an area where Center for Policy Dialogue has been working for long, be it on trade issues or regional connectivity, investment, other financial support in the context of Chinese cooperation to Bangladesh and also other regional countries in South Asia. So we'll be continuing this work, and I also seek support from the, particularly from the Chinese embassy with regard to data, as I have mentioned in my opening remarks also, that data availability is an issue. So firstly, we don't have adequate data, real-time data, and authentic data also. So I think only from the official sources, these data can be available. That's one predicament in terms of making any analysis on that, and which can also guide us towards what needs to be done more. So thank you very much, each and everyone. We started.
One minute. I would like to address a remark directly to Ambassador Mahbubuzzaman. In the way that we have made a request to the Chinese ambassador, I would make a request to you that when you go back to Beijing, can you take some initiatives in identifying think tanks and research institutions in China who would be able to collaborate on such a project? And in fact, connecting them with us?
Sir, is the question addressed to me, sir?
Yes.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
The major request to the Chinese ambassador, but I'm also addressing a request to you, since you are now in Beijing and you are in a position you have connections, and you should look out and go and meet with some of the research institution directors to see if you can in fact connect us.
Yes, sir. Yeah, now with the situation largely stabilized and improved, definitely we will be interacting more with these Chinese research institutions. We already have identified some of these institutions, and definitely there is a huge amount. We have already interacted with many, and of course, sir, we will also provide you with the coordinates of some institutions who would be interested to interact with research-oriented organizations, including Sir CPD. Sir, I've taken note of it.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time, valuable time. And we really appreciate your time, and we look forward to have your presence in our future events. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, Excellencies. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Excellencies. Thank you.